Chapter 31-37. There wasn't much to say about the third match. For people fought, and one person advanced. This match was only a competition of strength and combatability. Actually, this was an extra match, so the schedule was tight. Chun Zhao walked into the arena listlessly. The arena was a huge alternate dimension. It was large, but it wasn't a complete alternate dimension. There was almost nothing there. A majestic arena stood in the center of the space. Chun Zhao didn't know where in the main world it came from. Around the Colosseum were the 100 contestants he was responsible for. Chun Zhao picked up the list. Now the first match begins. Andro, Libisian, Mitsuji, Paul Vidal enter. The 4 contestants jumped into the arena from the audience seats. The rule is that you can't attack private parts. When I decide that someone is eliminated, that person will be eliminated. You can choose not to accept it, or I can throw you out. Then the match begins. The 4 contestants didn't know Chun Zhao and were very disdainful of his words. It was mainly because Chun Zhao wasn't old enough and he wasn't famous at all. Therefore, they didn't think much of him. Even though Chun Zhao was the judge, they still thought that he'd gotten the position through connections. Of course, Chun Zhao didn't care what they thought. The 4 looked at each other. No one attacked first. Suddenly, Andro took the initiative to act. His target was none other than the Japanese Mitsuji. Andro was very fast. He punched at Mitsuji. Mitsuji's figure flashed. He was also very fast, dodging Andro's attack in the blink of an eye. At the same time, he unsheathed his sword. Whoosh! A streak of sword energy whizzed past. Andro also dodged with speed. With a whoosh, the sword energy slashed the wall. Hiss! The wall was cut open, as well as the audience seats behind it. The power of this slash was quite astonishing. Andro looked back at the wall and the audience seats that had been cut open. He was a bit surprised, but also a bit scared. If that attack had landed on him, he'd probably have been decapitated. Andro glared at Mitsuji in anger. Shockwave. Andro punched through the air. A streak of white light shot out from his fist. Mitsui Dera immediately dodged, and the white light blasted the wall behind him. The wall immediately collapsed, and the impact also affected the audience seats behind him. It was no less powerful than Mitsui Dera's previous attack. Even Chun Zhao was surprised. Was the first contestant so strong? The battle between Andro and Mitsui Dera was in full swing. The battle between Libisian and Paul Vidal had also begun. Libisian was an elemental witch, while Paul Vidal was a shaman. The battle between the two was also quite shocking. Both sides were 500 kilometers from Los Angeles and manipulation and its geographical location. All sorts of elements bombarded. But even so, in order to have elemental magic big shots were a large area. This was also the Eagle family. Moreover, they were all the illustrious Eagle family. Had to rely. It was inevitable that he would be affected by them. They even had to find geographical locations were originally themselves. How much money in the end? Andro was hit by a shadow. It was naturally no billion U.S. Mitsui Dera, with no seized the opportunity. His is destined to have nothing to do with you. Chun Zhao quickly come up with so much. You would probably be blackmailed. And if you attract foreign capital, Zhang Tianyi final result not be swallowed up by those capitals. Right now, Mitsui Dera is not willing to personally deliver him really suitable, ignoring Mitsui Dera before long. I should invite the other supernatural classics from all over the world. Get out of my way. Agler frown. I haven't lost yet. How competitive Andro was furious. Fine. His injuries affected him no longer, but he felt that he still had his combat power. Chapter 41, he was very unwilling. The final sign of magic contract. The 6 contestants were eliminated. Why do you want Andro swung his fist at Chun? There are thousands of cameras. I still have a lot of curiosity about used in record live broadcast. Before that, Chun Zhao had already checked surrounding cameras. I feel that Andro's head was a live broadcast, but the content was land developed the Biku Archipelago. This was to ensure that you have an ejection 50%. Seems like you don't. Chun Zhao will take out the director's job US dollars also smashed him into the audience seat because the competition had to be complete. As long as you have the three were somewhat surprised by this Biku Archipelago. Suddenly, Biku Archipelago, 3 of them quickly gained their exposure and returned to the match. So your Eagle family had also be the match ended with just then. Chun Zhao heard a woman's cry. I don't, of course, Mitsui had rifle partly because this was the hunting arena. Both of them had already wavered. Mitsui had won because he was strong. He saw a woman being chased by it was truly the strongest person. However, the situation wasn't. They still could not accept Chun Zhao. However, Chun Zhao, the strongest person, had the highest chance of it. The woman was also adding second four-person battle. He didn't know this. Chun Zhao read out the chasing of the four contestants, or maybe they were worried that one day Chun Zhao watched Mr. performance. He immediately jogged. Once Chun women in front were killed them, Mr. Chun swallowed Chun Zhao remembered Walter. They were not even playing the role save bad guys. Chun Zhao's power. They also knew that they were here to even with a magic contract. Regardless of whether they wouldn't give up their strategy second round for an unreasonable because a magic contract. Suddenly, a figure passed by whatever Chun Zhao said. A mere magic contract. He couldn't go against any of Chun Zhao's cut off. For example, when we signed the magic contract behind were cut off, he'd already proved how much Chun Zhao with an row of plants, but he wanted away. Okay, the battle is all the referees. Let's talk after the battle. So fast, Mr. Chun could only see and invite. Please watch carefully. The three of them screamed. Go and invite them. After the woman in front clutched her shoulder very well, witnessing Chun Zhao. Chun Zhao was hesitating. He actually had. It was almost impossible. The woman actually pressed her strength improved by leaving. Although Monica wriggling, Walter won the second round. Started with an overwhelming advantage. Chun Zhao's congratulations, Walter. This woman's life force was so strong. Walter looked at Chun. She could actually forcefully activate. Chun Zhao nodded and waved in the spiritual world. Go down. No healing spell the later was as effective as Walter hurried back to the audience. It also wouldn't leave many of the contestants in the following round. The two contestants knew chasing her weren't so lucky. After all, they cried out. The first round was on this kind of injury was already many people had stayed. Chun Zhao, they saw the Chun Zhao back. They all knew Chun Zhao reached out. And anyone who'd been to Island 98 knew how terrifying the figure paused for a moment, but then rushed towards the woman. Almost no one dared to be rude before Chun Zhao. The woman's reaction was not slow. Many of the contestants the moment the figure stopped moving were filled she had already cast an advanced shield on herself. As for the contestants who didn't care about the woman's advanced barrier shattered all eliminated the figure arrived in front of her. Chun Zhao had always said that he was fair and Shang-Qing realm. However, Chun Zhao's understanding of Shang-Qing realm moreover, it was a speed type enhancement. As long as no one knows Chun Zhao's tricks, the woman's shield no one could criticize Chun Zhao. The small world. There were a few people present who had their doubts, disintegrated. But they all knew was the first time they'd all entered that world with Chun Zhao in the second round. Among the contestants, they'd all seen Chun Zhao's there was no way he could win. Attack. Those below the upper clarity realm had no chance of winning against those at the upper Chapter 31. This was not the same. 100 contestants below the four-man battle royale, where they could restrain each other. Chun Zhao had to be in charge of 25 matches. The shortest match only lasted those below 3 minutes. Two completely different concepts. The longest match, as long as they could not cross that full 7 hours, it would be impossible to make up for this gap. Boring. The woman this was a competition with no time limit. Fatal threat. There was a high chance Chun Zhao's expression changed. After this 25 matches, it was already the fourth day. Every strike was a destructive. Felt tired. His methods were also extremely cruel and fatal. It was a rather Chun Zhao pressed down from a distance. Some matches were fine. The figure paused. They were exciting. He looked in Chun Zhao's direction, but others weren't so enjoyable. Also saw the person's face at all. Clearly, they just fought each other. And underage, they were evenly matched. Chun Zhao was even more shocked. They just stood there. He had the power, kept releasing magic realm cultivator to see who ran out of young age first. Wasn't this talent These matches were not entertaining at all. That slightly there was no technique at all. But the contestants couldn't be blamed. Kill. After murderous all, they weren't here to show off their Chun Zhao. There wasn't a strong that said the matches had this to kid had probably killed more Chun Zhao wasn't the worst. The youth moved. Zhang broke free from Chun Zhao's. The matches he was in charge of lasted. He flashed behind the woman. He did not give up on matches. Woman. Almost every the woman faced the youth. One could imagine what he had completely above her. To Chun Zhao, she had no way to resist at all. She could only stay where she was. Both made it into the top 100. On the other hand, match still Chun Zhao fought with the youth. Chun Zhao sat on the chair. The youth's aura grew stronger and stronger. If it was still a single match, his movements became more intense. Chun Zhao felt that he would be depressed. You can't stop me. No, the youth. The fourth match is survival. The next moment, the youth abandoned the woman. What do you mean? And ran. Chun Zhao asked, confused. Chun Zhao frowned as he watched the youth leave. The first one at the is the extremely cold environment. Sidara's There's a mysterious 14 years cave under Island 98 speed where the temperature is negative 100 Although the name list didn't state the young man's strength. The cold air there it recorded his past frostbite to the soul. He was very outstanding. The second one is Island not 35, to the point where he could crush the average temperature of the Abyss volcano, but this time more than strength that he had displayed. The third one is the deep reef sea area of Island 21. Did he use some special magic potion? Even reach but what kind of potion could reach such a terrifying level? The fourth one is the sky. Chun Zhao glanced at the woman, and the two contestants paused, and he was about to announce for these four extreme environment tests. Just then, the Chun Zhao's phone choose Chun Zhao. There's a cold and hot environment. Are a competition of realm contestants to see who can last the longest in the. So what if you encountered Shangxing the deep sea test? Is to see Chun Zhao said nonchalantly. The fatal height, I encountered, as the name suggests, is to see who can fly the highest. The problem only is 4 people can advance in each of these tests. The strength they display, that is to say, is completely illogical. If only 4 people choose one test, so what? Then maybe they were no matter what their score of these 4 people is. One of them is my disciple. Do you think someone is unlucky and 99 people choose the same test? Not only did they become, then all 99 people have to compete for, but they've also become arrogant and bloodthirsty. What a troublesome match. Maybe isn't there a direct your disciple has reached his rebellious phase? There were, but in order to accommodate you still don't understand. Judge like you, they are controlled by special events. Their strength is far beyond the Shangqing too picky. The thing is giving them power. That's the situation. Which category are you in charge of? I also want something like that. Zhang Tianyi asked. Chun Zhao said, aren't there 7 judges? I wonder if they still want I don't think I need to be in charge of one category for the 4th match. Right? Chapter 41-45. The old shaman Zhang Tianyi was helpless against my power comes from nature. Clearly, these extreme Chun Zhao was scared of Zhang Tianyi's tricks. Their Chun Zhao's response was very negative. My performance might not be as good was also as some contestants. It seemed that he couldn't embarrass Chun Zhao. So I'll be absent for the 4th match. Otherwise, I can be in charge of the extreme hot environment. It really has nothing to do with me. I can be in charge of the extreme cold environment. Mary, the 23rd generation blood spoke. I'm not good at high altitudes. Let me interrupt. Or extreme depths. Something happened on the main island. My situation is similar. Suddenly said, more than a dozen spells can allow you to ride the clouds, but you can't attack the too high without warning. Me too. Some ordinary people came to the island for the fun. But my water escape spell can be used a little. Some TV so I can only choose the high altitudes. They're taking pictures and filming on the island. Okay, I'll be in charge of the high altitudes. More than 10. The assignment for the 4th match was completed. Where did these Shangqing realm experts come from? Qingping. Also, what kind of damage could a dozen Shangqing experts do? The flaws in their spells putting Chun Zhao aside. So they took normal Shangqing expert could destroy a city. Chun Zhao couldn't blame time. It would take less than half a day just for a dozen Shangqing cultivators. Then it was Mary, the 23rd blood, and I suddenly have a bad feeling about this. Chun Zhao was confused. Are they going to completely ruin the spiritual world and turn the entire ordinary society? Zhang Tianyi picked up the old shaman. I'm Zhang Tianyi. Worriedly, Grandmaster. Everyone's heart something happened. Something such a situation could really happen. The incident in the X-Men world has been exposed. Superhumans were above ordinary people. Yes, because dozens of media outlets around the world. They were also a great threat to ordinary people. Now, all the TV stations are some broadcasting these ordinary people and superhumans would become opposites. How could this be? Now, do you know who their situation was? Very similar. I haven't gotten any useful information yet. Old Zhang. It was an anonymous. It really has nothing to do with sent it to the TV stations. Chun Zhao still doubted Zhang. The whole world is in an uproar. I'm crazy. It has nothing to do with me and waiting for Zhang Tianyi yelled frantically. Hearing the news, who else Zhang Tianyi had mixed feelings. This has nothing to do with me, still happened. Okay? Just as Zhang Tianyi said. The most important thing now at an indescribable speed in Chun Zhao, and I will go back to the main minutes, but everyone already knew about it. I'll leave this to you guys. And the 23rd generation Blood Mary also ended their conversation at this. There's a director. They looked at Zhang Tianyi and broadcasted. Did something happen? Chun Zhao realized that all 3 of the director had strange Everyone's heart skipped a beat. Take out your phone and search the ether. If the director was controlled, soon, then no matter what the scene was, it would be broadcast. The spiritual world had finally been. If some people on island number 1 wantonly carried out a massacre, this time was different from ordinary the other times. They would definitely fear. The media had discovered supernatural events. Does anyone know? The governments had easily covered it up. This time it was completely exposed. Everyone thought the governments couldn't hide it, even if none of them cared about this. Chun Zhao found news about the ether world. They had never thought that something would go wrong. It was a 10-minute video battle. It was a battle between a few contestants. The mastermind then took advantage of their contempt to hide the location. They sacrificed one person in order to they were unable to solve this problem from the root. Chun Zhao, you don't even know, heaved a sigh of relief. I don't know either. Luckily, since we can't stop the content from otherwise, it wouldn't just cause an uproar. We can only forcefully interfere now. Zhang Tianyi Chapter 31, you guys stay 39. As long as you find a suspicious target, take action directly. At first, it doesn't matter who they charge created if you can't keep them alive when it hit the water. Then Zhang Tianyi said to Chun Zhao, this was because all the governments were trying their best. Let's go back to the main island. Cover up the incident. Chun Zhao to cover the existence the mastermind of the spiritual world. But even if his brain exploded, he still couldn't figure it out. The depth charge finally showed its true power. If something
things were
big
revealed
happened on
by
the main
people
island,
with
it would also have a
motives.
huge impact.
This time,
Chen
even the
Zhao
government
flew
could not
directly
cover it
to the
up.
main island.
This was a
At the
characteristic
same time,
given
he
by
called
the
a
times.
Lunarai.
Information
A
flowed
Lunarai.
too quickly.
I have a situation that
Before
I
the
need you to
governments could
analyze.
react.
President,
the information
what
was
happened?
already
The
widespread.
streets are in chaos.
With the ether world
There's
incident,
fighting everywhere.
more supernatural
Hide
incidents
and don't
were
go out.
revealed.
Chen
Even
Zhao
many
said.
genuine
Are you guys
spiritualists
together
had
now?
appeared on TV.
I'm with Manet.
They were no
Where's
longer
on
the
the
scammers who
and
used the
Howith?
name of
They went out to
spiritualists
fight.
in the past.
Someone just
Those
broke
who
into the
appeared on
hotel
TV this
and
time
started attacking.
were almost
They
all
went with the other
genuine
contestants
spiritualists.
to stop
Even
that
the
person.
unwritten rules
I don't know what's
of the
going on
spiritual
either.
world
Put it
could
on
not
speaker,
stop them.
and I'll tell you
more
guys.
and
Help
more
me
people
analyze it.
believed and
Chen
accepted
Zhao
the
picked out the
existence
key
of the
points
spiritual
and
world.
explained the current
Chen
situation.
Zhao enjoyed the
President,
sunlight on the
the
balcony.
mastermind
lazily.
might not be
It seemed
human,
like the exposure
Lunarai
of the
said.
spiritual world
Not human?
did not affect
Why do
him
you
at
think
all.
so?
The social
President,
orders still existed.
from the original
It did
ether
not
world
collapse
until now.
because of the existence.
Don't you think that the
of
mastermind's
spiritual
goal
world?
has always
a cheerful
been clear?
and childish
It's very
ringtone
likely
sounded.
that the other party
Chen Zhao
is an
picked it up.
intelligent
Hey,
species
Steven, what's
from
up?
the world of Warcraft.
Chen,
Of course,
you're a
the
spiritualist,
main point
right?
is that if the
Sort of.
normal human
You already
society
know.
and the
Why are you
supernatural
asking me
world
now?
are pitted against each
Chen,
other,
do you know
it
any other
won't benefit
spiritualists?
either side at all.
What do you want?
And I can think
If
of
it's
no
some supernatural
faction or
incident,
organization
I should
that
be able
would
to take
benefit
care of
from
it.
this.
No,
Even
no,
if it's an
Steven
evil
said.
cult,
I
they
decided
wouldn't
to
try to
project
subvert
with
the order
BLM.
of the human race.
I need some spiritualists.
Just then, Manet
Have you
also
finished the movie with
interrupted.
Grove?
I think that the
Not
other party
yet.
hid very
It'll
well,
be released on
but
Christmas.
this move is
It's in
very
post-production.
bad.
It's
and
even a
promotion.
very rough plan.
You want a spiritualist
Why do you
to
say
film
that?
a TV series?
Take the incident
12 years ago.
I'm not
as
sure
an
if I could
example.
find one for you.
In the past 12
I'll ask someone I
years,
know.
no
Why do you need a
organization
spiritualist?
or
They could do
individual
special
could find
effects too,
any traces
right?
of the other party.
To be realistic,
It's the same with the
also,
incident.
the topic
of the
days
spiritual
ago.
world has been
The other
too
party has a
popular
very
these
hidden
days.
plan in
I want to make
every
this TV
step,
series,
but this
to
time,
make use of it.
It looks more like
You're
a
a top
revenge
director in
operation.
Hollywood.
Won't
Why
you
do you
look
say
bad
if
if
you
you
film a
film
TV series?
Because other than causing
as long as the price is
destruction,
high,
this kind of
I'll do it
operation
even if you want me to film
won't
a TV
actually
series.
achieve the goal.
Then what price
of
can you
turning
offer?
normal society?
I don't know how the
against
people in the
spiritual
spiritual world charge.
How is that possible?
Do you have any suggestions?
Isn't the current situation
If it's an
dangerous
ordinary,
enough?
low-level
President,
one,
it
they'll
looks like
treat
the
you
other
like a
party's
grandfather
plan
for a
is
few
very
hundred or a
dangerous.
few $1,000s.
But it's actually very
If it's more
easy to break
expensive,
it.
you'll
That's
need
why we said
tens
it's rough,
of thousands of dollars.
Manet said.
I can even get you hundreds of thousands.
I want to rye.
You
How
should
much
have
does
thought
the
of it
most
too,
expensive
right?
one
Chen
cost?
Zhao felt that
You
his
can't
brain
afford it.
cells
Are you
couldn't
looking
keep
down
up
on
with
me?
the pace of these
You can take a
two
look at
highly
JD.
intelligent people.
1 to 200
Anyway,
million USD.
to Chen Zhao.
Are you sure you want to invite
The situation
them to
was
show their
very
faces?
dangerous.
I can help you
and
contact them for
unsolvable.
free.
He felt that compared
Pretend
to the
I
two
didn't
of them,
say anything.
he was like a retard.
Tell me your
Was
requirements.
the situation really
and I'll
that easy to
evaluate it
break?
for you.
By
What
now,
I need is something
Chen
with a little
Zhao
bit
could
of
already
fame,
see the coastline
and at the same
of the main
time,
island.
a
Even from
considerable
far away,
effect.
Chen
That is
Zhao could
magical
still
effect.
feel the chaos.
Do you understand
on
what
the
I
main
mean?
island.
At the
Beautiful
same time,
magic, isn't it?
He felt
Yes,
Zhang
yes, that's what I
Tiany's
mean.
aura
Chen
coming from
Zhao
behind.
thought for a moment.
Chen Zhao looked back.
There are a lot of people
Zhang
who can
Tiany
cast
wasn't
beautiful
slow.
spells.
Suddenly, I know quite
from
a
the
few.
direction of the main
What's your
island.
budget?
A
Within
huge
$2 million
aura rushed towards
You don't
them.
have to fight
Clearly,
with random things.
the other party was
right?
here to snipe.
No,
them.
no.
It was a
How about
spiritualist
this?
that Chen
I'll give you a
Zhao
contact
didn't know,
number.
but
I'll
he
tell her
gave
first,
off an
and you can call her in 10
unsettling
minutes.
aura.
A woman?
Yes, a witch or an elemental
Chapter
witch.
31. She can meet my requirements, right?
Chen Zhao
Don't
didn't
worry.
stop.
Out of all the
Instead,
people I know,
he charged
her
straight
magic
at the
is
enemy.
the most beautiful.
The unfamiliar
Even I can't
spiritualist's
reach her
body
level.
suddenly
If you want to use
swelled,
CGI,
bursting through
you'll
his
probably have
clothes.
to invest
He
tens
turned
of
into a
millions of
terrifying
dollars.
magical beast.
Hello. Are
The
you
magical
Ms.
beast
Jalanesh?
was pitch black.
I prefer you
and
to
its
call
back
me
was
Miss.
covered in tendrils of
Jalanesh
lightning.
replied.
The
Are you
lightning
Director
seemed to
Steven?
be able to connect
Yes, I
with
am.
the sky.
Did Chin tell
and
you?
Earth. Yes.
Instantly. When you have
The
sky
time,
was filled
I
with
want to talk
dark
to you in
clouds.
person.
Also,
the magical beast
I need to confirm
aura
your
became
abilities.
more and more
Anytime.
terrifying.
Can I do it now?
Electricity
Sure.
surged
Pick a
through
place.
its body. Then
a dark red
Jalanesh
neutron
arrived
star
at
was
the place
already
where she
brewing
had
in
agreed
Chen
to
Zhao's
meet
palm.
Stephen.
But when
Steven
Zhang saw
Tiany's
Jalanesh,
attack
he was
arrived
very
first.
surprised.
A sky-high
You-
sword energy
you're Ms.
attacked
Jalanesh?
from behind. Yes.
Chen Zhao almost
Jalanesh
thought that
nodded.
the peerlessly
I
sharp
heard that you wanted to
sword
shoot a
chi
TV
was
show.
attacking him. Stephen looked
However,
at her.
the
I
sword
want to know how
chi
much you can
brushed
do.
past Chen
Jalanesh
Zhao's
looked
side.
around.
Hiss.
This was a
The
high-end
sword energy
seaside
cut
restaurant.
the magical
But apart
beast
from them,
directly.
there were no other
One
customers.
slash, two halves.
There were only a few
Chen invaders
Zhao's
walking
dark red
around.
neutron star was
Here,
thrown up too.
This restaurant
It
is mine,
exploded between the
Steven
two
said.
halves of the
Of course,
magical beast
I don't want this
body.
place to be destroyed.
Instantly,
The
it's very
terrifying
expensive
magical
after all.
beast turned
Zhao
into
and Ash stood up
nothingness and
under
walked out of
Chen
the restaurant.
Zhao,
And
Stephen
Zhao
followed
and
him out.
Tiany's combined attack.
Just then,
Chen
he
Zhao
realized
and
that
Zhao
Zhao
and
and
Tiany
Ash's
glanced at
feet
each
were
other.
breaking
Neither
free
spoke.
of gravity.
Instead,
As she was still
they
walking
charged
forward,
toward the city
a
of the
red
main island.
orb appeared beside
By the time they
Zhao and
arrived
Ash.
at the downtown
Then there was
area
a
of
second
the main
blue
island,
sphere
They had
followed by
already
the third
seen
yellow
a large
sphere
area of
and the
ruins.
fourth green sphere.
They also saw
For
many
orbs
victims.
surrounded Jalanesh.
Jean Tiany's expression
was surprised,
was serious,
but it wasn't enough
from the
to
23rd
satisfy
generation's
him.
notification
Anything else?
until now.
Jalanesh
Less than
raised her
10 minutes
hands.
had passed. Stephen
But they'd
suddenly
already
felt
caused
a wave
so
of
much
heat
damage
coming
and
at him.
casualties.
He couldn't help but
Split
take a
up,
few
Jean
steps back.
Tiany said.
Looking up,
Chen
he
Zhao
saw the
nodded.
thing that
Then
was emitting a
he turned
scorching
and
aura.
headed in another direction.
A huge ball of
At the
fire
same time,
appeared
he
over
spread out his
Jalanesh.
senses.
It had a
Dark
diameter
lava
of 10
surged out
meters.
wildly.
Is that
Just
enough?
then, Chen
Jalanesh
Zhao's phone
asked,
rang again.
looking down
It was
from above.
Monica.
Stephen
Mr.
forced
Chun,
himself
Mr.
to
Chun,
calm down.
where are you?
But he still
Something
wasn't
happened.
satisfied. Something
Can it be
happened
bigger?
to the main
He asked.
island.
Chun
I'm
said
back
that
on the
your
main
spells
island
could
now.
save me tens
Chun
of
Zhao
millions
said.
of dollars
What? If you use
You're
CGI
back.
to show them.
Aren't you?
Jalanesh
Something happened
used
on
all
Island
her
1
magic
too.
power.
But
The
the fireball
fireball
in the sky became bigger and hotter.
I came back with
It had a
Jean
diameter
Tiany,
of
Chen
30
Zhao
meters.
said.
The
I
huge
need you to do
fireball
something now.
almost blocked
What do you
Stephen's
need me to
vision.
do?
That's
what?
enough.
Are
Control
there
the
any
public
other
opinion.
spells? Of course.
Jalanesh
This was something
exhaled.
Chen Zhao
It was
and
indeed
Jean
hard for
Tiany
her
couldn't
to
do.
maintain.
It didn't matter
such
how
a
strong
huge
they
fireball.
were.
That was
But
an
she still
individual's
accepted it for
combat
that generous
power.
reward.
Once they lost
After
the public
dispersing the
opinion.
fireball,
In that case,
Jalanesh rested
they would be
for a
facing
while.
an even
Whoosh.
more serious problem.
Jalanesh waved
He
her
didn't need
arm,
Monica
and thousands
to
of
control
spheres
the world's
appeared
public
around her.
opinion.
They
They
were
just had to
red,
control
blue,
the media
yellow,
broadcast
and
on the
green
main
spheres.
island. This was much simpler. If he couldn't
Chapter
control the
3140.
end, he would just
Stephen's
control
eyes
the
almost
source.
popped out.
Go
He'd seen
and tell the
Chun
world
Zhao
that the
fight
100
before.
Ku Islands
But
have
when
been guarding
Chun
the
Zhao had
seal
done
of
it
the
before
entrance
him
to another world.
there was no beauty
Your
to it
Eagle
at all.
family
He'd
is
killed
the
a monster
person in
with
charge
one
of this
punch.
seal.
The scene
You
was
shoulder the
bloody,
responsibility
but there was no
of
beauty at
protecting
all.
the world.
It couldn't even
This
compare
time,
to Jalanesh.
It is a long-planned
It was
invasion
too dazzling.
by another world.
Stephen couldn't
Monica
think of
immediately
such a
understood
beautiful
what
scene,
he was trying
no
to do.
matter how hard he tried.
Of course,
the scene
Chen
was
Zhao didn't
beautiful,
come up with this plan.
but it wouldn't be
Chen Zhao
beautiful at
wasn't that
all if it
smart.
was thrown on
As long as they
someone's
could
body.
spread the news.
Can you throw these
Then the
colored balls
situation
out?
they were
If
facing
you want me to
would be
destroy all the
completely
surrounding
reversed.
buildings, and
even if it
kill
caused
everyone,
huge
I can do it,
casualties,
Jalanesh said.
Ordinary
These
society
elemental
would
balls
not
will
blame
bombard
or
everything
hate
around
spiritualists for this,
indiscriminately
because they were
They don't have a
defending
specific
against
target.
intruders.
All right,
That was the
put it
plan
away,
Manet
put it away.
and Aluntarai had
Stephen
come up
wiped
with.
the cold
The
sweat
100 Vault
off his
Islands
forehead.
and the
He
spiritual
suddenly felt a little
controllers were no
terrified.
longer a threat.
After that, with
Stephen asked
formidable combat
Jalanesh
power.
to demonstrate
Instead,
a few more
he was an
spells.
unsung
Anyway,
hero who
what he
protected
wanted
the
was
world from
gorgeous
threats.
and exaggerated.
It had to be said
magic.
that Manet
As
and
for
Aluntarai
power,
were really
his target
smart.
audience,
No matter
was
how
regular
hard
people
Chen Zhao
anyway.
thought.
Regular
He could
people
only solve the
didn't know
problem
how
with
effective
force.
these spells were.
But they were different.
They just needed
They
to
would
be
just
eye-catching.
visit the spiritual
Stephen was very
controllers in a
satisfied
different
with
place.
Jalanesh. The public
He didn't know
opinion
what
would
level
be
she
reversed.
was.
Just
But
then,
judging from
Chen Zhao
Zhao's
encountered
tone,
another enchanting state
Jalanesh
expert.
should be a high-level
The moment the
spiritualist.
expert saw Chen
So,
Zhao,
Stephen wasn't
he could
stingy.
clearly feel
He
the
gave
murderous
Jalanesh a
intent
very high
and
price.
hatred emanating from
After
him.
Jalanesh
Then his
signed
body
a
started
contract.
changing too.
Stephen called
just like the
Chen
spiritualist
Zhao.
he'd met at
Chun,
sea.
I've
His
signed a
body
contract with
started
Miss
turning
Jalanesh.
into a magical
about it?
beast.
Do you want to act
Chen
too?
Zhao wasn't in
Forget
a
it.
hurry to
I
kill
can't
him.
do magic
The magical
as colorful
beast, on
as
the other
Jalanesh,
hand, attacked
Angelina
Chen
said,
Zhao,
shaking her
impatiently.
head.
Chen Zhao
Don't.
turned around
I know
and
you.
ran.
You
He
can't
ran
do
to where there were
beautiful
many
spells,
but
you're
Chen Zhao, what are
definitely
you doing?
better than others
I
in
saw
a
you.
fight.
Why are you
Hearing
running?
Stephen's words,
Go back and kill
Chen
that
Zhao
guy.
couldn't help but
Jean
roll his
Tiany
eyes.
yelled in the
What a
communicator.
joke.
Film a
Flustered
fight?
and
You probably don't know how
exasperated.
scary
Stop
animal
joking.
protection organizations
Was there a
are,
need for
right?
Chen Zhao
in America
to run from
human
that
rights
despicable
organizations,
magical beast?
child
Even if
protection
it was him,
organizations,
he could get
and
rid of
animal
them in a
protection
matter of
organizations
minutes.
were known
What do you know?
as the
Chen
three
Zhao
most
cursed.
righteous.
These guys are
terrorist
all
organizations.
possessed by magical
Be it
beasts.
stopping the
They're
filming
clearly
of a
not from our
movie,
world.
stopping
We have
the
to tell the
production
public
of
that we're
factory,
heroes
or
fighting
stopping the
against the
operation
invasion
company
of another
as long as
world.
they had something on
Who would
them.
know that you're
They
fighting
could make
monsters
anyone
in a
want to
corner?
die. We have to
So,
pull them out in
if they could
public
avoid
and let the
animal
whole world
abuse,
see
discrimination,
Jean
and
Tiany
violating
froze.
minors.
They would
Fuck,
try their best.
You're
to
even
avoid
more
it.
cunning than me.
No, not try their best.
Jean Tiany wasn't
They definitely
stupid.
couldn't appear.
Chen Zhao explained
Chen
a bit.
Zhao was sure
After
that if
Chen
he and
Zhao
Stephen
explained
filmed
a
some
bit,
super
he
violent
understood
scenes,
Chen
Stephen
Zhao's
and
intentions.
Chen Zhao would
Jean
care.
Tiany
They would
glanced at the
definitely
opponent
be
he
huge
huge trouble. Immediately. Then how much will you pay
feel
me?
good.
Get lost.
Why wasn't this guy
Do you need my
turning into a
appearance
magical
fee?
beast?
You also know
With
that I
Chun Zhao's
don't lack
reminder,
that bit of appearance
Zhang
fee.
Tianyi knew what
You're
to do.
planning to let a super
Mr.
rich
Chun
person on the
lured
Forbes
that
list
magical
make a
beast to the
cameo
coast.
appearance for you.
There's an interview
Don't you
team
think you're
from
going
Gaul
too
hiding
far?
there.
Fine.
Monica also
Recommend me a
discovered
few more.
Chun Zhao's
Miss
tracks.
Jalanash alone
With Monica's
is
reminder,
enough.
Chun Zhao
Just ask
ran in the
Jalanash
direction
to
Monica
recommend
pointed.
you. Intentionally
She basically
or not.
knows everyone
At the
I
same
know.
time,
She knows what
Chun
effect you
Zhao's
are.
spreading
Well,
dark lava
are you not in
had
LA?
already locked onto
You've found
a
out?
few spiritualists
Nonsense.
possessed by magical
It's been a long
beasts.
time since we
Every
last
single one of
contacted
them
each
was a
other.
participant.
If I hadn't
Chun
contacted
Zhao
Famtis
suspected that they'd
and heard
already
that
been
she's
possessed
piloting a
back
plane,
in the ether
I wouldn't
world.
even know you were
Although he
out.
didn't know how it was done.
Where are you now? In a secretive place,
Chun Zhao
felt that
Zhao
the main
said,
purpose of the
I can't
competition
tell you.
was to
Although
find
the spirit
suitable
world had
hosts
been
for these
completely
magical beasts.
exposed. If the plan
However,
had gone smoothly,
the 100 Ku Islands
the magical
still
beast
did not
army
allow ordinary
surged
people
out
to
of the
enter.
spatial door.
Thus,
Then they
Chun
possess
Zhao could
a
not
large
reveal the
number of
location
human
of the 100
spiritualists
Ku Islands
and take over their bodies.
All right,
You're being
by
so
then,
secretive.
humans would probably
now
be
that the
attacked
whole
from
world
all
knows
sides.
about the spiritual
One had to
world.
admit that
Why
this
are you
was
still
very
being
dangerous
secretive?
for the entire
I thought that
world.
being
If Chun
mysterious would
Zhao
increase
didn't
my
intervene,
charm.
now he
I really
might
want to
have
find
to
the guy who
consider
exposed
how to
me
chase
and
away
beat him
these
up.
magical beasts.
He hung up the call with Steven.
Of course,
He was
the
thinking
worst
about
case
the next
scenario
competition.
didn't happen.
He was in charge
After
of the
Chun
high
Zhao
altitude event.
lured the magical
It was a
beast
competition
into the
to
camera.
see who
He
could
pretended
fly
to
higher.
defeat them
because
with
not
difficulty.
every
Of
contestant
course,
can fly.
Chun Zhao
Therefore,
still used
it
the
had
dark
its own
lava to cover his
limitations.
face.
This had
Then,
nothing to do with
Chun
strength.
Zhao charged
It was
to
related to
possess
the magical
beast
system
he had
they
locked
practiced.
onto.
Those who
Zhang
could
Tianyi
fly
was also
might not
acting.
participate.
Although there were a
Those
lot
who
of
participated in the
competition
every
were
moment,
basically
it was still not
outstanding
enough.
in the flying
However,
event.
Chun
Of the
Zhao
100
and Zhang
contestants,
Tianyi felt
less
that
than
acting was
10
more important.
chose the
But there were
flying
many
event.
top-level
More
spiritualists on
accurately,
the island.
there were only
Maybe one or two
8
of them
people
were
fought
far
for
from
the
enchanting
spots.
states.
Even
the elimination
8 or
rate
10 of them
wouldn't
was
be enough.
50%.
But if there were
It
100
wasn't
or
high,
200 of
but
them,
it wasn't low
then it would
either.
be two
On the day of the
different things.
competition,
So,
all
after
8
the initial
contestants
chaos,
came to report
the eliminated
to Chun Zhao.
contestants
Chun
started
Zhao brought an
resisting,
altitude
whether organized
measuring device
or unorganized.
It was worn on
With
his wrist
Chun
like a
Zhao
watch.
and
Chun
Zhang
Zhao
tested
Tianyi's
it.
intervention.
It was very
The situation
accurate.
started
None of the
getting
8
under control.
contestants were convinced.
They were all glaring at each other. If
Chun
Chun
Zhao
Zhao
was
was
not
not
present,
present,
they would probably
the
have
battle
started
on the
fighting.
main island
Because the
was
high altitude
unfolding
event
didn't
like a
have any
wildfire.
special
While
requirements for
fighting,
the environment.
Chun Zhao walked
Chun
toward the
Zhao
hotel.
was given a
First,
normal island.
he had to make sure
It was
that
only
on
a
the
few
lead,
square kilometers
a lunch
and
ride,
had some sparse
and Manet
vegetation.
were safe.
Chun Zhao
After all,
glanced at
they were on the
8
same
contestants.
side.
First,
Okay, who's
Lunari
first?
and Manet. Chun
They
Zhao
weren't
asked
as
after
strong
looking
as
at
the
the list.
contestants on
Mr.
the Deku
Judge,
Islands.
are you sure
Even
you
in
can
North
judge my
America,
results? They were ranked from the bottom.
One of the contestants
So,
looked at
Chun Zhao was most
Zhao
concerned about
arrogantly.
whether they were safe
Okay, shut up.
or not.
If you want to
Although
compete,
he kept talking
then
to them.
compete.
Chun
If
Zhao
not,
wasn't
scram.
sure if their
If you keep
hotel was
talking,
safe.
I'll eliminate
Chun Zhao
you
didn't
manually.
relax until
The
he reached the
contestant's
hotel
voice stopped.
and saw with his own
expression
eyes
was
that the two
ugly.
were safe.
He clenched his
Do you know where
fists,
Helith and Angalit
as if he was about
are
to
now?
lose control.
They fought
of his
outside
emotions.
the hotel.
Chun
with the other
Zhao flicked his
contestants
finger to the side
and chased away a
1,000-meter
gap
Manet
appeared
said.
beside
But
him.
they didn't seem
At
to be
the same time,
satisfied.
a
and went
force was
further away.
past the sea.
We don't know
on
where
the
they
other
are
side
now.
of the island. Why didn't
The
they bring their
contestant
phones?
immediately
The two smiled
controlled his
bitterly.
emotions.
The battle
The
was
other
too
contestants
intense.
all looked
Lunari
mockingly
said.
at the
It
contestant
probably
who
affected their
provoked
phones.
Chun Zhao.
Chun Zhao
This
thought about
contestant
it.
clearly
When
didn't
he entered
have
the
high
hotel,
EQ.
he
No matter how
indeed
confident
noticed
or
the situation
arrogant you were,
outside.
you shouldn't
There were
provoke a
potholes
judge.
everywhere. The
He didn't
hotel
even
buildings were
understand
also
such a
damaged
simple
to
logic.
varying degrees.
The contestant
Forget
was
it.
definitely
Let's
from some
ignore them
big
for now.
family.
Everyone
Chun Zhao had
spoiled
no
him at
choice.
home. That was
Come
why
with
he
me.
felt like
It's
he
too
was
dangerous
second
here.
to the heavens.
President, the
When not
contestant
important.
snorted
You should
and
deal with the
buried his
troublemakers
dissatisfaction.
first.
Who
The
cares?
next moment,
I have to
pair of
ensure the
pure
safety
white
of my people
wings
first.
suddenly extended
Everything
from the
else is
contestant's back.
secondary.
Whoosh!
The two were
contestant
strangely
suddenly
touched.
soared into the sky.
Unfortunately,
Chun
Chun
Zhao
Zhao
wasn't in the
also
mood to
flew
go
up,
along with them.
following
Right
closely
now,
behind the
the
contestant.
entire
Eat
downtown
my
area of
fart.
the main island was
The contestant
in chaos.
muttered to himself
Chun Zhao
as
brought
he
Manet
flew
and
upward with
Lunari
even more
out of the
effort.
hotel.
Chun
A
Zhao
ferocious
still followed
magical
behind
beast came
expressionlessly.
toward them.
Chun Zhao
Then,
was not
Lunari
optimistic
and
about his
Manet
results.
Saw
Even if he
Chun
used the
Zhao
holy
tear
light spell,
the magical beast
Angel
apart
Wings.
with his bare
If it was
hands.
just flying,
They
or
knew that
speed,
Chun Zhao
Angel Wings was
indeed
terrifying.
very outstanding.
But the scene was still
But they were
very
competing in
impactful.
height now.
After walking
It wasn't
for a
the
while,
height that
Chun Zhao
limited the
stopped
contestants.
and looked back
It was
at
the
Manet
thin
and
air
Lunari.
and cold.
He
high
realized that the
altitudes.
two were quickly
If they went
searching
any
the
higher,
carcass
they would
of
have
the
to
magical
face the
beast.
problem of
But in order
cosmic
to keep up with
radiation
Chun Zhao,
after passing
the
the
two
thin
were
oxygen
very
layer.
hurried and panicked.
The dark lava on Chun
Chapter
Zhao's
31,
body
41.
spread over.
The early stages of
completely
flying
swallowing
weren't
the
difficult
magical
at all.
beast. As long as
I'll
you could
keep this
fly,
magical beast
anything
for
was
you.
fine.
Whether you want
In
to
the
keep it or
troposphere
sell it,
within
that's up to you.
10,000 meters.
Right now, come
apart
with me.
from feeling
This
the
place is too
gravitational
chaotic,
effect
and I don't
decrease.
have much
The
time.
higher you went,
Okay,
the
okay.
easier it was.
Actually,
But after
Chun
the
Zhao
troposphere,
couldn't go faster
you reached
even
the
if he wanted to.
stratosphere.
He could
Then you
not
started to
escape
feel
the battles that
uncomfortable.
came at him along the
temperature
way.
plummeted,
If they encountered
the
danger,
oxygen
they would
thinned,
still have to
and the
act.
radiation increased.
Chun Zhao, where are you?
It could be said
Come
that
and
the
help
real
me.
test
I'm
was
surrounded.
above
Just
10,000
then,
meters.
Zhang Tianyi roared into
the contestant just flew
Are
up
you kidding
without
me?
any protection.
3 to 5
Chun
monsters
Zhao,
aren't even enough
the
for you to
contestant
slap them.
was just
Go
using
and
his
play by
ignorance
yourself
to show
Chun
his
Zhao
incompetence.
ignored Zhang
Just
Tianyi's
as Chun
cry
Zhao
for
had
help.
guessed.
I'm fucking
When he
surrounded
reached
by a dozen
8,000
magical
meters,
beasts.
the contestant's body started to be
Hurry
covered
up,
in frost,
or else you'll see
due to the
corpses.
temperature.
Zhang
At the same
Tianyi
time,
hurriedly
his
complained.
limbs became stiff.
His tone was rather
The cold
urgent,
would cause
and it
body
seemed
fat
that he
to
was
be
not
depleted
joking.
several times.
Chun Zhao could
faster
only
than
carry
normal.
Manit
So
and a Lunari
the
on their
contestant
way.
used up
When
a
he
lot of
arrived at the
energy.
scene, without
Spiritualists
saying
had
anything,
better stamina
Chun
than
Zhao
regular
cut
people.
open the stomach.
But as
of a
long as he
magical
wasn't an
beast,
enhancer, seeing
his
that
stamina
Chun Zhao
wouldn't
had
be that
arrived,
The contestant stopped
heaved
at
a sigh of
9,000
relief.
meters. Old Zhang,
Zhao didn't
you
say
attract
anything.
too much hatred.
He just hovered in
I
front
didn't
of the
encounter
contestant.
as
The
many
contestant's
as you on the way
face
here.
was as cold as
For
ice.
magical beasts,
He'd
were
been proud
already
of his
lying
flying
ability.
ability.
But
Tian's
now,
feet.
it seemed
One
that
of
he
them
was
was a mangled
completely
corpse.
exhausted.
Why
But
didn't you come
Zhao
later?
still looked
Any
relaxed,
later, and I'll be done.
The contestant
Zhang
cast a
Tianyi
recovery
scolded angrily.
spell on
Chun
himself.
Zhao snickered.
Then he flew up again.
You said you were going to die.
Chun Zhao shook
and
his
made
head
me
slightly.
excited for nothing.
If he was willing
Even
to cast
without
a
me,
defensive spell
you
now,
won't die.
his result would
Zhang
be even
Tianyi
better.
was so
It
angry
was just
that
as
his
Chun
beard
Zhao
flowed.
had expected.
He had killed
The
5
contestant
magical
flew
beasts
another
in a short
1,000
time.
meters.
Actually,
and
this
then
was a
couldn't
very
go
extreme
any higher.
move.
The
Some moves
contestant
to be
was
used
clearly
once.
unwilling
However,
to give up.
These
He wanted to
magical
continue
beasts had
climbing.
intelligence,
But the next moment,
comparable
he
to
suddenly
humans.
felt dizzy.
If he kept
The
using
world
the same
spun,
move,
and he fell.
he would be the one to
Chun
die.
Zhao grabbed
Moreover,
the contestant
this
and
move
landed on
could
the
not be
ground.
used casually.
As soon as the contestant
Chun Zhao had
landed,
arrived in
he
time.
pushed Chun
Otherwise,
Zhao away.
he would
You
really have
interfered
to
with my
fight
competition.
his life.
I can
Of
go
course,
higher.
Chun
What did I
Zhao
say? I
could
needed
see
you
the
to do
situation.
anything. Go
Why
hide
complain?
behind Celestial Master
Chun Zhao
Zhao.
sent the
Chun
contestant
Zhao said to
flying
Man It
with a
and
slap.
Lunterai.
He stared
Zhang
at the
Tianyi
contestant
took a few
coldly.
steps
You're
toward Chun
eliminated.
Zhao.
The other
Man It and
contestants all
Lunterai
looked at him
immediately
mockingly.
ran,
Putting
behind
aside
Zhang
the
Tianyi.
contestant's result.
Chun Zhao
He went
walked
against the
slowly
judge
and
right
started to
after
stretch
he
his
landed.
limbs.
He was asking
Suddenly,
for death.
Man It
This wasn't
and
a sports
Lunterai
competition.
heard the sound of
In a
something
supernatural
tearing
competition,
through the air.
the judge had
Chun
a lot of
Zhao's
power.
figure disappeared.
As for how
A
much
hole
authority
suddenly
they
appeared in the
it
chest
mainly depended
of
on
the
the
largest
strength of the
magical
referee.
beast.
The referee in
However,
front of him was
this fatal
obviously
injury
very
did
powerful.
not make the
He didn't
magical
understand the
beast
situation at all,
lose its
and
ability
openly
to fight.
questioned and
He was
criticized
still
the
alive and
referee.
kicking.
If this wasn't
Chun
according
Zhao,
to death, what was?
Those things need
However,
to
this was also
completely
good.
destroy
With
their
one
bodily
less person,
functions.
there were
Otherwise,
only
they
7
won't die.
contestants left.
Chun Zhao
and they were fighting for
immediately
4
changed his
spots to
strategy.
advance. Zhang Tianyi's
That's good.
meaning was clear.
Second,
Their
feather
bodies
land.
and souls were
Chun Zhao
separated.
looked at the
However,
only Asian
a
present.
simple fatal
Lin Yu
injury
walked up
would
and
not
cupped
be able
his
to
hands.
stop these magical
Chun Zhao
beasts
nodded.
from moving.
You can
The
begin.
most effective
Mister.
way to destroy their bodily
Referee,
functions was
may
to
I
cut
ask
them
if I can take
apart
off, but
physically,
not land
or it
counts
could
as a
cause
result?
their bodies
Yes.
to change in
Chun
physical
Zhao
form,
nodded.
such as
Soon,
burning. Chun
Of
Zhao
course,
understood what
physical
feather
destruction
meant by being
was
able
Chun
to take
Zhao's
off,
forte.
but not land.
In Man It
Lin
and
Yu
Lunterai
squatted
eyes,
down.
then
This
with
was
a push
no
of his
longer
feet,
a battle,
he instantly
but a
rushed into
slaughterhouse.
the air.
These
Very
terrifying
quickly,
magical
it was
beasts
obvious
were like
that
lambs
Lin Yu was an
waiting to be
enhancer.
slaughtered. The strength of his
Chun
jump
Zhao
was
Chun
extremely
Zhao was the
exaggerated.
butcher with the
The
butcher's
ground
knife.
within a radius
In
of
just a
more than
few
100
minutes,
feet. The
was
magical
almost crushed
beasts
by
were
him.
already a
He wasn't
bloody
flying,
mess.
he was
Chun
jumping.
Zhao exhaled.
Of course,
Why did these
since
things
Chun
attack
Zhao
him?
had accepted
I met
his
an
method,
old acquaintance.
it didn't
of theirs.
matter whether it was
and
flying
then,
or jumping.
And then I talked about
Very
the past.
soon.
And
Lin
then
Yu had reached an
Zhang
altitude
Tianyi
of
took out a strange
10,000
cane.
meters.
The two ends of
His
the cane
feet did not
were
slow
slowed
down
down
because
Chun
of
Zhao
this,
did not know,
and he was
what
still
metal
leaping
it was
upwards.
made of.
10,000
Then I took this thing
meters,
from him.
20,000
and then those
meters,
magical
25,000
beasts surrounded
meters.
me. Chun Zhao looked at Lin Yu,
What's this?
who was almost
Rubaraka
frozen
staff.
into ice. You can also call
If
it
you go
the
any
galaxy's
higher,
brilliance.
you'll die.
Are you
This
sure you want to keep
is
going?
the divine
Lin Yu's
artifact
lips
that
were
controls
already
the galaxy
purple from the
in
cold.
the Ebon world.
He looked at Chun
Chun
Zhao,
Zhao asked in
who was
surprise.
flying at the same height
Yes.
as him. As
Zhang
expected of a
Tianyi
referee.
nodded.
The
He
items
barely
used was
reached this
limited,
height.
but it did not
However,
stop Chun Zhao
the
from
referee
being
did not
curious.
seem to be struggling
You've
at
seen this
all.
before?
Can
It's
you
an
help me
heirloom
land?
of the Egler
Chun
family.
Zhao grabbed Lin Yu.
Why is
and
in
they
the
descended
hands of
quickly.
those magical
Mr.
beasts?
Referee, what's my
I
result?
don't know.
Before
Zhang
I announce
Tianyi
your
shook
result,
his head.
You have
You're
to
quite
prove to
familiar
me
with
that
that girl
fly.
from the Egler family.
I don't need you to fly
Now that
very
she's
high.
inherited the family,
You just need to be able to
you can
float
ask her.
10
Since I've
centimeters
saved you,
above the ground.
how about
for
this
more
thing
than
be
10
my
seconds.
spoils of war?
Chun Zhao said.
Huh. In the end, this is a flying competition, not a jumping
Chapter
competition.
31.
Lin Yu's expression
The
was
chaos on
somewhat
the main
unnatural.
island of the 100
The
Vault
others were
Islands
gloating,
finally
but
calmed
there were
down.
also those
Some
who
of the
agreed with
eliminated
him.
contestants
Helpless,
spontaneously
Lin Yu could only
organized
walk to the center.
themselves.
Chun
They
Zhao
defeated
thought of himself
3
in the
powerful
past.
enemies.
If an
in a
enhancer
row.
wanted to fly,
one of them was
he
killed
had
on
to
the
meet
spot,
a special
while the
condition.
other 2 escaped.
He had to fuse
They said they
magic
won,
into his body,
but in reality,
magic was lighter
they
than air.
lost.
That was because they had
filled
paid
with
a
magic
terrible
and
price
reached a critical achieve victory.
His body
They
would
really
be
had to
overflowed.
thank the eliminated
Because this condition
contestants.
was so strict,
There were many righteous
Chen Zhao
people among
even
them.
flew later
They didn't
than
have
Zhao
many
Nash.
thoughts.
Chen
They just
Zhao
wanted to
felt that
protect
Lin
the
Yu had
peace.
probably reached
That was
his
all.
previous
There were
level.
also some people
Taking
who
a
didn't
deep
fight
breath,
the magical
Lin Yu
beast
started
directly.
fusing his magic.
There were also some
into his
people who
body.
did not
It seemed that he knew
directly
the trick
confront
too.
the magical
Gradually,
beast.
the surroundings
At least,
started to
these
lose
people didn't
gravity.
fight the
The
magical
stones
beast
around him
directly.
started to float
At least,
weightlessly.
these people were
However,
more worthy of the
they were
title
very
of hero
low
than
only
Chen
slightly
Zhao
above
and
the
Zhang
ground.
Tianyi.
Lin Yu
who were the
increased
main
his magic
force in
output
calming the
and
chaos.
creation.
It was
course,
obvious that he was
Chen
having a
Zhao
hard time.
and Zhang Tianyi
Gradually,
didn't plan to
Lin Yu
jump
started
onto the
to
stage
leave
to
the
receive
ground.
the prize.
His feet started
the battle
to
on the
rise
first
into the
island
air.
had also calmed
Okay,
down.
that's enough.
Two contestants
Chen Zhao
died.
said.
The three
Lin Yu,
possessed contestants who
25,000
caused
meters,
trouble were
Chen
executed
Zhao
too.
looked at the
The
crowd.
remaining contestants were all subjected to the
magic
most
was very
stringent
special.
screening.
He
They had to
kept
make sure
inhaling
that no
and then
one was
inflated
possessed.
himself into a
As
ball,
for who won the championship
slowly
in the
floating
end,
into the air.
no one cared anymore.
He flew very,
At the
very
moment,
high.
the
He flew
outside
up to
world was
35,000
already reporting
meters.
this incident.
It could be said that the
everywhere.
contestants
More
all had
truths
their own
started to be
abilities.
revealed.
The 100 Vault Islands had always been the front line of the war between humans and magical beasts. For hundreds of years, there had
Chapter
always been a group
3142.
of unknown heroes
Three were
who
eliminated
silently
and four
protected
advanced.
this world.
Of the three
They
who
used
were
their
eliminated,
bodies to
the
block
one who
the
flew
magical beast
300
from the other
meters
world.
had no
This incident was
objections to the
caused
result.
by the
As
magical
for the other
beast from
two
the other
who had
world,
flown for
they attached
12,000
themselves
meters
to humans
and 18,000
called themselves
meters,
the
they were
messengers
rather
of chaos.
dissatisfied.
It was also because
They really
of
wanted
this
to compete
incident
again.
that this
Perhaps they
caused
felt
the
that they
reputation
didn't
of the
perform
spiritual
well.
world
Unfortunately,
and spiritualists
Chun
to
Zhao
rise
didn't give them a
greatly
chance.
in the
What was the
society
competition?
of ordinary people.
If they didn't perform
At the
well,
moment,
they could do
a
it
few
again.
judges
How could this be
gathered
called a
together.
competition?
Everyone
The
had
other
a
two had
serious
this
expression
thought and
except
vaguely
for
indicated.
Chun Zhao.
But since Chun
Because
Zhao
Zhao
felt that these were things that
they didn't
important
dare
people
to
should
cause
worry
trouble.
about.
Chun
Chun
Zhao
Zhao
didn't seem like
It
someone
wasn't his place
who
to
could
worry
communicate
about
well.
these things.
To Chun Zhao's
Of course,
surprise,
what Chun
both
Zhao
an elite
thought
and
wasn't
Helis were
important.
eliminated.
What
in
others
this
thought
round.
was important.
An elite chose
To
the
others,
deep sea, while
Chun Zhao's
Helis
combat
chose
ability
the extreme
was
cold.
irreplaceable.
An elite,
To put
was
it
a
bluntly,
speed-type enhancer.
if normal people
His body
really
was
wanted
much
to start a
stronger
war
than
with
normal
the
people.
spiritual world
However,
one day,
there was still a
Chun
big
Zhao
gap between
was the
him
nuclear
and strength
bomb
type.
of the spiritual
He couldn't
world.
fly, and
What should we
didn't
do
have
in this
outstanding
situation?
resistance to cold.
Zhang
and heat.
Tianyi threw out the question
So,
first.
He could only
What else
force
can we do?
himself to choose
Didn't you already
the deep
publicize
sea.
the fake news?
Unfortunately,
Now, let
his
alone
resistance
ordinary
to pressure
people,
wasn't
even most of
outstanding.
the spiritualists
It could be
in the
said that he
spirit
didn't
world
care
think
that the
what
100
event he
Vault
chose.
archipelago
He was almost
is really the
destined
front
to be
line of
eliminated.
the war between
Helis
humans
didn't have
and
any
another world.
outstanding advantages in the four events.
Then released
She
some
could
magical
fly,
beasts,
but she wasn't
regularly,
strong,
and
she wasn't
kill them
outstanding
within
in
controllable
hot,
range,
cold, and
Old
high-pressure
John said.
environments either.
This was a classic
She had chosen the
example of
extreme
nurturing
cold
project
project
because
to
her
strengthen
magic was
oneself.
inclined towards
As the head of the
yin
church,
element.
John
Being of the
Sr.
same
was
nature was
quite
still
politically
good.
literate.
If she chose to
However,
experience the
Chun
high
Zhao had
temperature
a
in a volcano,
After all, he'd
she
killed
would
most of the
probably
magical
explode.
beasts in that
As for the
world.
high-pressure
After
environment
all,
in the
he
deep
had
sea,
unleashed a powerful
Helis'
move
body
meteor.
was like a normal
Most of the
person's.
magical beasts
So,
would have been
the
annihilated
two of them were
by that
eliminated.
attack.
Chun
The
Zhao
rest would
couldn't
also
accept
have
it.
to face
Chun Zhao
drastic
couldn't
changes
accept
in the
it,
environment,
but it was reasonable.
Therefore,
On
it
the
was
lead,
hard to say how
don't
much
be
would be
discouraged.
left.
Look,
Now, isn't the
Helis
time to
doesn't
talk
care
about
at all.
this?
On the lead,
Now,
scratch
that the public
his head.
opinion has
It's
been
not that she
controlled.
doesn't care.
The first thing we
She
need
just
to
doesn't
deal
show
with
it.
is the
All right.
demonic beasts
No matter
lurking
what,
among the
a
humans.
loss is a loss.
What form do they
Chun
take?
Zhao didn't
and when
seem
did
to
they
care.
infiltrate
His tone
the
was
humans?
relaxed. The old
Just
shaman
be more
asked.
prepared next time.
First is their
Hallie's
magic.
lifted her head
After my
and looked at
research,
him.
I
What is
found
the
that they
next
tear
world
apart their
supernatural
power and
competition,
soul, and then
How would I know?
merge it into the
I'll
human
ask
body.
later. The
On the
process
lead,
is a bit
and Helis
complicated,
weren't happy.
but it's not too
On
hard
one
to
hand,
understand.
they felt that
Zhang
the event
Tianyi
was
said,
too unexpected.
A god-level magical
However,
beast
this
can
also
probably
proved
split its
that
soul
while they were
and power
indeed
into
outstanding,
three parts
they
or
had
more.
obvious flaws
Depending on the
in their
individual's
strength.
soul
Chun
and
Zhao
power,
felt that they didn't
the amount that
lose
can be
anything
split
this time.
is different too.
But in the next competition,
Can't they attach
it might not
themselves
be
to
the
a human
human
with a complete
So,
soul and
I think
power?
you should improve your
Yes,
strength in
Zhang
all
Tianyi
aspects.
said. And
If
not
there's a
just
body that
focus
can
on
bear
improving.
their
When your
terrifying
strength
soul
is
and
sufficient,
power,
your
they can
ability
attach
in those
themselves
events
to
will
a human
naturally
in a
improve
complete
accordingly.
state.
With that,
But if you
Zhang
only
Tianyi
focus on
glanced
these
at
four
Chun Zhao
events and
However,
focus on
if the
training,
soul and
what will you
power
do when the
exceed
next
the limits of
competition
the body
doesn't include
the body
these
will
four
die
events?
in alarming
I know.
rate.
Harold
Even if they're
replied
split
coldly.
into many
An elite
parts
was
and
still
attach
mad about being
themselves to a
eliminated.
human, the
By the
human
way,
body will
Are you
still
going to
die
stay
very
and
quickly.
watch the rest of the game?
At least half a
or
year,
go back to
at
Los
most
Angeles?
a year, and they'll die.
If you want to go
completely.
back,
I'll have
then
fam to
after the
send you
physical
back.
body they're attached
Stay.
to dies,
I want to see what
can
kind
they
of people are
continue to
left
change
behind.
bodies?
On the elite
Yes,
side.
but
Chun
they need to
Zhao
find a
chuckled
weaker
and looked at
spiritualist to
Hallie's.
attach themselves
I'll
to.
stay too. They also need
Fine.
to split their
Chun
soul
Zhao
and
shrugged.
power into
What's the
smaller
next
parts.
match? Is it a
Zhang
direct
Tianyi
fight?
said.
On the
What?
lead,
Mary, the 23rd
No.
generation.
Chun
blood.
Zhao had just received
Asked,
news about the
confused.
last competition.
Because for this kind of
Island
attachment,
100,
they first
wild
need to
hunting
consider
game.
who is
the
the
last
leader.
16 contestants will be randomly
Biflis
placed
said.
on the island.
This is similar
similar to possession. The 16 contestants if they were to seize the physical body of an expert, there will only be need to face one final even stronger soul. Unelite and Helis were somewhat in such a situation. They originally had the chance to participate in this exciting even if the physical body soul. Also, almost all the contestants were spiritualists who magical beasts have incomplete those who were able to survive. So they will definitely not be able to unleash each of them possessed true soul extraordinary strength. In such a situation, there was no doubt about this. Finding a weaker person is undoubtedly all the judges wouldn't show themselves. Instead, but if they continue to split like this, won't they be able to create a large number of people to attack? Try not to show yourself. If the old shaman, Mr. Chun, Monica,
that's impossible.
And Taser Agler found Chun Zhao
Souls
together.
and power
Chun
can be
Zhao was
continuously
surprised that they were
split
looking
into
for him
smaller
together.
and smaller
You two
parts.
are actually
But
still
there's
alive.
only one
Chun Zhao
consciousness.
said jokingly.
They can control
Mr.
other
Chun,
souls like
I
puppets.
don't understand.
But that doesn't
One of
mean
you
that
has two
every
parts of the
soul
power
is
of
the
Saint
same
Michael.
body.
And the
Especially
other has
after the
three
second
parts
split,
of the power
their
of Saint
souls and
Michael.
power will
As
be
long as you kill the
unprecedentedly
other,
weak,
you will
and they will
obtain
no
the
longer
complete
be a
power
threat
of
in
Saint
terms of
Michael.
power.
So you should
Then if they
hurry up
choose to
and get rid
attach
of each other.
themselves to the
Both of
higher
their
ups of the
faces
human
darkened.
race, the
Taser
consequences
Agler
will
gritted
be
his
very
teeth
serious.
and glared at Chun Zhao.
Everyone
If it didn't
laughed
know that
at
they
the
couldn't
old
beat
shaman's
Chun
word.
Zhao.
They
They
felt
would
that
definitely
controlling
kill
the
him.
leaders of human
I'm not
countries
Mariah
was the
Agel.
fastest
I would never
way
harm my
to
own
destroy
family.
human
Tess
society.
Agel said
In reality,
hatefully. I'm
we're
not Mariah
human leaders
Agel.
that easy
Have you
to get in
forgotten the
touch
fact
with?
that you killed
Moreover,
your big brother?
apart from a few monarchies,
Tess Agel
most
was
leaders
speechless.
did not have true
Fine, I'm
absolute
joking.
power.
I know I had no
It was
choice.
undoubtedly a
Tell me,
fool's dream.
why are you looking for me?
think that one or
Mr.
two
Chun,
leaders
Monica
could
said,
destroy the entire
I hope that
human
everything
race.
goes smoothly.
The old
in hunting
shaman's
ground
thinking
on
was
Island
rather
100.
old-fashioned.
I
You
hope
probably
so,
hadn't
too.
come into
Chun
contact
Zhao
with
said,
human
shrugging.
society for
No.
many years.
I mean that
He
no
only
one
focused
can
on
die.
cultivation.
I hope so too.
So he didn't
But
understand the
accidents
current
are
mainstream
unavoidable
social
in
structure.
competitions like
Then they
this.
haven't been lurking
Our
among
existence
humans
for a
is to
long
reduce
time,
the chances
right?
of accidents.
I'm not sure
happening.
about the specific
We've sold the
time, but if they have
broadcasting
been
rights to
infiltrating
28
human
TV
society for a
stations
long
in 6
time,
countries.
there's no
Monica
need to make a
said.
fuss about it.
Monica
The
said,
real threat period,
according to
is
our
only the
estimates,
first
the
2
number
years
of people watching
after they
this
attach
match might
themselves to a
exceed
human.
200 million.
After 2 years,
Mr. Chun,
their soul
do you understand
power
what I
will
mean?
weaken
If 200
due to
million
them
people see
constantly
any
changing
bloody
bodies.
scenes, it won't be good for either of us.
Chapter 3149. Even if they can't overthrow the human order immediately, they can still
Chapter
cause great trouble for the
3143.
entire world.
Monica
if they're
hesitated,
allowed to
but she still
infiltrate.
said,
Jean
$3.5
Tierney chuckled.
billion.
If this really works,
But as long
they
as we
won't need
have
to start a
$1
war.
billion,
Why? Even
our
Chun
family's
Zhao
crisis
couldn't understand.
can be temporarily
If a large
resolved.
number of elites
Who do
in
you owe
human
so much
society
money
were
to?
infiltrated,
The bank.
it would
Monica
cause
said,
great damage.
My father,
If a large
he
number
mortgaged
of
the 100
elites
coup
in
islands
human
to the
society
bank.
were
I
infiltrated,
don't know where he invested
it
the
would
money,
cause
but the
great
income from the
damage.
100 coup islands
Do you think a
isn't
spell that
enough
takes
to
over
pay the
another
bank
person's
loan?
body will
Not
leave
even in
no
installments.
traces? Chun Zhao
Bifula
touched his
said
nose
calmly.
and smiled.
There's no
If I help
spell
you pay
that
the
is
bank loan,
unsolvable.
what can I get?
Especially
What do you
this
want?
kind of spell.
50%
I didn't notice
ownership
it
of the
before,
100
but
coup
now I know.
islands.
In
Chun
less than a
Zhao
month,
said,
there will be
the 100 coup
hundreds of
islands
protection
belong to the
spells.
Agel family.
If a possession
Monica
spell
said
could
firmly,
overthrow
it's
the
going to
human
become the
order,
bank soon.
then the magical
and the
beasts
Agel
of the
family
alternate
will soon
world
lose
wouldn't be
everything
able to do
like
it.
most
The
small
native
families.
intelligent races
You're taking
could
advantage
return
of the
humans
situation.
to the Stone Age.
I thought it was a
There were
timely
all
help.
sorts of possession
Chun Zhao
spells on
said.
Earth.
Not
For
taking
example,
it seriously.
Bifula was
Do you
the
think
one
you
who
can get
had
the 100
most
coup
right to
islands
speak.
just like that?
The possession
Monica looked at
spells
Chun
used by the
Zhao
magical
angrily.
beasts of the alternate
course,
world were special.
You have the right to reject
but there wasn't
me,
any difference
but
at
you
all.
don't have the
In the
right
beginning,
to reject the bank.
it was indeed effective.
I'll buy the 100 coup
But once
islands
a
from
real
the
war
bank
broke
at
out,
a lower price.
the deciding factor
I'm sure
would
they'll
be
want
the
to get rid of
difference
this
in
hot
combat
potato
power between
as
the two
soon as
sides.
possible.
Since
I won't let you get
ancient
away with
times,
it.
no matter
Monica,
what war,
don't be so
stratagems
hostile to
might
me.
be able to achieve
I'm not
regional
planning
victory,
to use violence
but it was never
or
the
hostile
only
takeover.
factor that affected
I'm just
the
giving you a chance
overall
to
situation.
choose. Chun
Most of the
Zhao
time,
said with a smile.
winning with numbers
Chun
and
Zhao
the
smiled.
strong against the
You
weak
can
was the
refuse.
most common.
That's your right.
Even war,
But the other choice is
didn't
the wiser
advocate
one.
winning with surprise.
Monica got even angrier.
Instead,
Taser
winning
Agler
with numbers
pulled
and the
Monica's
strong
wrist.
against the weak
Mr.
was the
Chun,
way of the king.
your share is
The
too
alternate
high.
world had
Taser
already been
Agler said.
destroyed by
Hi, Chun
You have
Zhao.
to pay the bank.
The magical
$3.5
beasts that had remained on
billion
Earth
had
This
infiltrated
means that when your
human
father
society.
mortgaged the 100
They'd
coup
lost their
islands,
foundation,
he probably
and they
only
become
mortgaged
weaker and
$3
weaker.
billion.
Therefore, now
Humans
I'm
had
spending
already won the
$3.5
war
billion
between the two
just
worlds.
for 50%.
There was no
ownership.
second possibility.
My asking price,
Not to
is
mention
already
that
very
Chun
low.
Zhao
You should be
and the
glad.
other high-level players
But this
were
still
still
can't
present.
hide the fact
Even if they
that you're
all
taking
left
advantage
and
of the
handed the
situation.
joysticks to
That
ordinary
bastard
people,
mortgaged
they wouldn't
$3
lose.
billion.
The topic of the
Doesn't mean
meeting
100 coup
was
islands
no longer
are only
important.
worth $3
The threat
billion.
of the magical beast
come
that
on.
had infiltrated
In my
human
eyes,
society.
The 100
was
coup
limited.
islands' greatest
Their
value
real topic
is the
was
production
relationship
and sale
between the spiritual
of magic
world
raw
and normal
materials.
society.
But how
But
many
this
magic raw
situation
materials
had
can they
never
produce? happened in 1,000 years.
Could it be sold for
Even they weren't sure what the
$100
consequences
million
would be of
based
such
on
a
100
complete
million
exposure
US
of the
dollars per
spiritual
year.
world.
Even if
Of
you
course,
use all of
they
this
hope
money
that
to
both
repay
sides
the
could get to
bank,
know each other.
I'm afraid it will
integrate.
only be enough.
But this
for the
kind of
interest.
absolute peace
in other words,
only exists
you may
in
never be
dreams.
able to repay
To
the
achieve this
principal
kind of
you owe the
peace and
bank.
stability.
Am I right?
First of all,
Now that the
no one on
spiritual
either
world has
side
been
would do
completely
anything to
exposed,
discuss the other.
The Biku
For
archipelago
example,
has great
someone jumped
potential
out
and
and
can
said
be
that
used as a
spiritualists
tourist
were a
island.
threat.
Tace Agel said.
I also have an
spiritualist
island with an area
dared to
of only a
challenge
dozen
the human
square
order.
kilometers.
Since
But
ancient
now the
times,
reclamation project
there's never
has
been a
doubled
lack
the
of
area.
these two types of people. The only thing they could be sure of was that if a real war between the two human systems happened, it would be over. They would stand unwaveringly on the side of the spirit world. Of course, this was not their choice. Instead, it was destined to be a camp. There was no such thing as defection, nor was there any such thing as neutrality. The competition in the 100 Vault Islands came to an end. Everyone boarded the flight back home as well. Last time, there were 5 people on Chun Zhao's private plane. This time, there were still 5 people. Other than an elite and Hallies, there were also 3 contestants from the American region, Kendall, Quinn, and the little old man. However, Quasi and the little old man had perished in the middle of the tournament. They all lost their lives in the second round of the Ether World Points competition. Chun Zhao sighed at the island. This time, Chun Zhao also contacted Kendall and asked if he wanted to go back with him. After all, Kendall was one of the few experts in the American supernatural world. Plus, it was on the way. Their destination was Los Angeles. Kendall sighed as well. Who would have thought that the little old man and Quinn, who were close to each other, would die in this competition? Their strength had also been proven in this world-class competition. They were good, but far from enough. There was still a gap between them and the real top. Compared to someone like Chun Zhao, he was world apart. This time, he'd truly witnessed Chun Zhao's abilities. In fact, in the first round on Island 98, he'd been assigned to Chun Zhao's assessment area. Then, in the finals, he'd been eliminated long ago, but he'd vaguely seen Chun Zhao's traces. Who would have thought that there would be so many twists and turns in this competition? At the moment, Chun Zhao was chatting with Alunari and Marnet. How do you think the exposure of the spirit world will affect us? That depends on the president's development plan for the supernatural organization. How so? Chun Zhao asked. First, fame. With the president's abilities and the supernatural organizations, it's not hard to become famous overnight. Chun Zhao nodded. Alunari continued. What can fame bring to the supernatural organization? With new power, more people will want to join the supernatural organization. Wealth and famous people in the upper class will also flock to the supernatural organization. Are they all benefits? No, not all benefits. The disadvantages are obvious too. Once the supernatural organization's abilities are exposed, trouble will come. First is the government's attitude. Alunari looked at Chun Zhao deeply. The president is Chinese. Will the government be at ease if an organization funded by the American government is led by a Chinese? Chun Zhao nodded. Anything else? The supernatural organization's growth also means that the president won't have 100% control over the organization like before. By then, the president won't have to assign and complete missions. Instead, he'll have to scheme against others. This is an unavoidable problem for large organizations. Second is the enemy organization, the psionic team, Marnet said. Everyone knew that the psionic team and the supernatural organization were enemies. They found out the day they joined the supernatural organization. Right now, the supernatural organization has always been the one leading the rhythm because of the asymmetry of information. The supernatural organization is far stronger than the psionic team, but they're keeping a low profile to maintain the balance on the surface. But if the supernatural organization's abilities are exposed, will the psionic team still be able to advance in the direction the supernatural organization has planned? Chun Zhao couldn't help but nod. Then what about maintaining the status quo? Are there any benefits or disadvantages? There are 2 sides to everything. Maintaining the status quo and keeping a low profile can be both good and bad. Of course, no matter what choice, the president's goal is to develop in the right direction. Then do you think the supernatural organization will choose to expose themselves or keep a low profile? Chapter 3150. Maintain the status quo. Manet and Alunari said almost at the same time. They were rookies now, but they were having a good time. They had enough resources and almost no bottlenecks. When they encounter bottlenecks, they would use resources. If one wasn't enough, they would use 2. If 2 wasn't enough, they would use 4. They could always break through the bottlenecks. The supernatural organization didn't care who used up how many resources. Every member could receive enough attention. Everyone could be trained as an elite. Plus, the 2 of them were highly regarded by the team and Chun Zhao. But what if there were too many people? What if there was a new person who had the same role as them? Could they still get so many resources? Could they still receive so much attention and attention? That was obviously impossible. So, they didn't want the current environment of the supernatural organization to change. Also, they had to consider the big picture. The biggest question was whether Chen Zhao could continue to be the president of the supernatural organization. They understood the history of the supernatural organization. The past supernatural organization and the current supernatural organization were two extremes. They were as weak as they were in the past. All the changes were because of Chen Zhao. It could be said that without Chen Zhao, the supernatural organization would still be the same. In fact, would the members of the supernatural organization still stay? They were united because of Chen Zhao. If Chen Zhao left, would they stay? Every one of them would be a top expert in North America. But without Chen Zhao, would anyone still be able to command them? Would anyone still be able to restrain them? The two of them understood it the best. So, they didn't want anything to change. Chen Zhao didn't have any nostalgia for his position as the president. But after spending so much time with the members, he had feelings for them. Chen Zhao couldn't bear to leave them. The supernatural organization itself didn't have any binding power. The unity of the organization existed because of Chen Zhao. He listened to Aluntarai and Manit's explanation and analysis. Chen Zhao nodded slightly. Then let's keep a low profile. The plane landed on the runway of the supernatural organization's airport. Many members came to welcome Chen Zhao's group. Many people pulled Helith and Elite over too, wanting to know what happened on the 100 Vol Islands. After all, what happened on the islands wasn't a secret anymore. At least, most people felt that it was what they thought it was. Of course, he didn't tell them. Chen Zhao walked with West. Chen Zhao told West his thoughts and decision. Of course, the main ones were Aluntarai and Manet's. West was worried about this as well. He didn't want the supernatural organization to return to its previous half-dead state. If Chen Zhao left one day and his successor wasn't accepted by the other members, Chen Zhao wouldn't be able to accept it. Then the supernatural society would fall apart in a day. Here, Chen Zhao represented absolute authority and dominance. Recently, I heard that some entertainment companies are in contact with spiritualists and are planning to promote spiritualist celebrities. Should we intervene and regulate them? What's there to care about? Just let nature take its course. Anyway, as long as the law allows it, we won't interfere. The law doesn't restrict spiritualists from becoming celebrities. In fact, Chen Zhao had underestimated the changes brought about by the exposure of the spiritual world. On the way back, Chen Zhao realized that all the radio stations were broadcasting news about the spiritual world. For example, a haunted house was discovered somewhere. In the past, they would only treat it as some kind of prank or urban legend. But now, ordinary people already knew about the existence of the spiritual world. So, it wasn't just speculation anymore. The radio station even invited a real spiritualist. They analyzed the haunted house and what kind of evil spirits existed there. They even planned to get rid of them. If the spiritualist found the haunted house, how would they get rid of the spirits? If an ordinary person accidentally entered the house, how would they protect themselves? Chen Zhao only smiled at this. The spiritualist that the radio station invited should have some real skills. His analysis was quite on point. Even if Chen Zhao went on the radio, he wouldn't be able to do it better. After being away for almost a month, Chen Zhao finally returned home. After a month, little Jerlin and little Larissa seemed to have grown a bit. Of course, children of their age grew up quickly to begin with. Maybe after a few days, they would realize that they'd grown a bit. In the evening, Fei Lai asked about what had happened in the 100 Ku Islands. Chen Zhao selectively told her some things. Are there really magical beasts from another world invading? There are, but the threat of otherworld magical beasts isn't that great. Then why do I see on the news that without the 100 Ku Islands, the world will be destroyed and humans will go extinct? So that ordinary people and spiritualists won't fight each other, Chen Zhao said. Humans are like this. They will only choose peace when there are external enemies. Just then, Didi ran in and sat on the sofa beside Chen Zhao. Uncle, I want to discuss something with you. What? I want to transfer schools. Transfer schools? Why? Chen Zhao looked at Didi in confusion. Are you not satisfied with the school you're in? Didi was the oldest and also the highest. He wasn't in Mountain Town's middle school. Instead, he was studying in a private school. No, it's not that I'm not satisfied. Didi glanced at Fei Lai. Chen Zhao looked at Fei Lai. You know the reason? I heard that a magic high school appeared in San Francisco. She wants to study there, Fei Lai said. Didi told me about this before. He wanted to ask for my opinion, but I don't know any information about that magic college, so I said it's up to you when you come back. Didi immediately looked at Chen Zhao with pitiful eyes. I need to know about that school. Chen Zhao wasn't surprised by the appearance of a magic high school. He just didn't expect it to appear so quickly. Or perhaps the magic high school had existed in the first place. He just didn't know. Regardless, Chen Zhao had to understand school first. Then he could decide whether to send Didi to that school or not. Ever since the spiritual world had been completely exposed, all sorts of monsters had appeared. For a moment, Chen Zhao didn't know what was going on with the magic high school. Uncle, I want to go see the school myself. You can't, Fei Lai said. Have your uncle go with you. Didi looked at Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao glanced at Didi and then nodded. Yes, you know how complicated the spiritual world is. I'm worried about you going to San Francisco alone. I've seen you fight with a god. That doesn't count. Chapter 31:51. Although Dadaira had some experience on the way to find the golden apple, but she'd been under someone else's protection at that time. Plus, her age was obvious. No matter what, Chen Zhao couldn't let Dadaira go somewhere else without worry. Dadaira really wanted to fly alone, but she couldn't convince Chen Zhao. Plus, she didn't plan on being too rebellious. After all, if Chen Zhao decided on something, he wouldn't care if he was rebellious or not. At night, Chen Zhao rose to an altitude of 300 kilometers. Normal navigation satellites and spy satellites were at this altitude. He couldn't even feel the air here. At the same time, the extreme coldness and cosmic rays were eroding his body. While cultivating, Chen Zhao looked at the world. At this altitude, he could see the outline of the entire world. Chen Zhao looked back into the distance. The moon here was even more majestic and full than on Earth. Sometimes, Chen Zhao would even rush to the moon directly. He would be the first person to land on the moon physically. But even Chen Zhao wasn't confident. After all, it was 380,000 kilometers away. It was 5 times the circumference of Earth. Chen Zhao's maximum speed was Mach 300. What did that mean? The fastest flying machine right now was Mach 20. To put it in simpler terms, it was 100 kilometers per second. It would only take about an hour to fly from Earth to the moon. The round trip would take 2 hours. If it was on the surface, Chen Zhao could fly for 10 days and 10 nights at full speed. But in space, it was extremely cold. There was no spiritual energy either. It was also filled with cosmic rays. Chen Zhao wasn't sure how long he could last in such an environment. After all, even now, Chen Zhao didn't dare to go too high above the surface. 300,000 meters was Chen Zhao's current record. The higher he went, the stronger his sense of danger was. Clearly, Chen Zhao couldn't really survive in outer space. At least, he couldn't do it for now. Of course, Chen Zhao wasn't in a hurry to land on the moon physically right now. At least he didn't have any competitors now. After cultivating, Chen Zhao returned home and had a good sleep. When he woke up in the morning, Fei Lai and the kids were already out. Only the lesser demons were busy with their work. Frigga had arrived early and was currently teaching little Jerlin and Larissa magic lessons. Portia and Zephyra arrived even after Chen Zhao had woken up. Needless to say, Portia must be stalling for time. There was a mistake. It had to be Portia's. There was nothing wrong with following this train of thought. Boss, why is there no breakfast? Chen Zhao rolled his eyes. You're late, and you still want to get breakfast? Aren't you a little too arrogant? Portia wasn't aware of her mistake at all. Boss, I think we need to discuss our salary with you again. Portia suddenly looked at Chen Zhao seriously. Chen Zhao ignored Portia. He sat on the sofa and held the TV remote. Boss. Go ahead, Chen Zhao said casually. What don't you understand about your salary? Just say it. Boss, We're all powerful spiritualists, and we're proficient in all kinds of businesses. That's why we're asking for a raise." Just then, the television broadcasted a piece of news. A magic street had appeared in Los Angeles. There were all kinds of magic shops and stalls on the magic street. There were even spiritualists holding signs that offered blessings, prophecies, exorcisms, and dispels disasters for the same price. $500 each. Chun Zhao glanced at Portia. "It's impossible to get a raise. If you're not satisfied with your current salary, I suggest you go to this magic street. If you're early, you should be able to get an empty space." Portia organized her thoughts and said, "Boss, my business skills." "Business skills? How can you handle my finances as well as Navika? Or are you saying that your combat power is stronger than Fora?" I'm very good at housework. Housekeeping doesn't even make $30 per hour. If you're only good at housework, I'm afraid I'll give you a pay cut." Or do you think you don't have to pay me back the $2 million? Chun Zhao narrowed his eyes at Portia. Portia gave up on her plan in despair. I'm going to work." Zephyr watched as Portia came back with a disappointed expression. "What did you fail? That damned vampire capitalist. You should have known this would happen. I just wanted to try my luck. Every time you ask for a raise, the boss will remind you of the $2 million you owe him. So, before you pay it back, you'll never be able to raise your head before him. But if I don't get a raise, I won't be able to pay it back. Then I can't help you even if I want to." At this moment, Navika Lena rushed in. Portia had always been at odds with Navika. More accurately, she was one-sidedly jealous of Navika. Portia felt that she had graduated from a famous university, after all. But why did she end up as a high-level housekeeper after so many years? Look at Navika Lena. How did she become Chun Zhao's legal consultant and financial manager right after graduating? Navika was a trainee lawyer, but she could feel Portia's hostility. When she saw Portia, she only nodded slightly. Then he raised his chin arrogantly and stepped on the heaven-hating high steps to enter. "Boss," Chun Zhao nodded. "Have a seat. Are you here to tell me how much money you saved for me?" "It's Caribbean Empire Cruise Line. This year's dividend has arrived. You need to sign for confirmation." "Oh, really?" Chun Zhao took out his phone and called Andrews from Citibank. After asking, he confirmed that the money had arrived. Then he signed the document Navika gave him. "Oh, Mr. Chun, a few people came looking for you yesterday. If they're looking for me to invest, I'm not interested." "They're not looking for you to invest. They said that you're employees and want their salary. Are you sure they're not scammers?" Chun Zhao didn't think that he would owe them his salary. I'm not sure, but they gave me your personal number and said that they couldn't get through to you these days, so they came looking for me." "Did they leave any contact information?" "Yes." Navika nodded. "Oh, the leader should be a woman. I think she's called Nanier." "Nanier. It's them. They're not scammers, right?" Navika was curious too. It seemed that Chun Zhao really knew them. But in her impression, Chun Zhao wasn't the kind of person who would owe his salary. "No, I'll contact them myself." Chapter 3152. "Boss, we're out of money." Perwell looked at Nanier helplessly. "Out of money?" Nanier asked in disbelief. "We brought money to Los Angeles this time. How come we're out of money?" Nanier asked in disbelief. Perwell saw that Nanier was covered in brand tags that hadn't been removed yet. Nanier was clearly a god of the otherworldlings, but she was full of desire for human luxuries. She was more human than humans. She pursued the best in terms of food, clothing, and shelter. "How about we do it?" Perwell asked in a low voice. No. I'd rather beg than do it in boss's territory. You want to die, but I don't." Nanier shook her head hurriedly. Perwell and the others were speechless. Nanier was the worst, even among her kind. Nanier killed people just like that. But once they returned to Los Angeles, Nanier suddenly changed. She even had to wait for traffic lights. Perwell and the others couldn't bear it. Although Nanier had changed, but her personality hadn't changed. She didn't dare to kill people and rob them. But if Perwell and the others didn't listen to her, she still had to teach them a lesson. She didn't show any mercy at all. She would give them a mental shock and blow up their heads. Nanier didn't dare to commit crimes in Los Angeles, But that didn't mean she didn't dare to deal with Perwill and the others. They'd already gotten used to Nanier's personality during the past 6 months on the island. Suddenly, Nanier's phone rang. "Hello, it's me. Where are you?" "Ah, boss." Nanier jumped up in excitement. Chen Zhao looked at the people wolfing down the food. "How long has it been since you last ate?" Chen Zhao was speechless. "You've almost eaten my ingredients worth $10,000. Although this was his buffet restaurant, the food here was bought with real money. 3 days. You didn't bring any money when you came to Los Angeles." "Yes," Perwill said helplessly. "We bought brand tags for boss." "Shut up," Nanier scolded. "Do you want to die?" "Asshole." Perwill shut his mouth helplessly. Chen Zhao was also speechless at Nanier's unconventional god. "In any case, you're a god of unusual creatures. You've thrown your expertise in bewitching people to the Mariana Trench." He only knew how to shop and squander. He was even more human than a human. "How's the ranch on Demon Island?" "Boss, there are 1,000 newborns and 300 semi-mature ones. We can produce 2 mature ones every day." Nanier was not ashamed of raising and selling her own kind. In fact, the morality of the otherworldly gods was completely different from that of humans. Although they had the concept of being the same kind, they did not have the awareness of being compatriots. Even without Nanier, they would only kill and devour each other. "You mentioned before, how's the progress of the higher grade edible type?" "Out of 1,000 larvae, about 200 of them can only be cultivated into high-grade edible ones. They haven't matured yet, and the larvae that were born before I took over have already lost their first mutation. Although we can continue to cultivate them using the same method, we won't be able to cultivate them into higher-grade ones. However, their meat quality and effects are still better than the previous unusual god." "Not bad. You've all done well." Chen Zhao took out a check. "Other than the first few days, I'll give you another 10 days off. You can do whatever you want during these 10 days. You know the rules. After 10 days, go back to work." Seeing the number on the check, Nanier's eyes lit up. She was already calculating how many clothes and handbags she could buy with this much money. Seeing Nanier's expression, Perwill knew that things were bad. He looked at Chen Zhao pitifully. Chen Zhao rolled his eyes. Then, he took out his phone and called Andrews. "Andrews, I'll have a few people go to the bank later. Help me give them tens of thousands of dollars." "Mr. Chun, how much?" "Whatever. Just $100,000 per person," Chen Zhao said casually. After hanging up, he said to Perwill and the others, "Go to Citibank and find someone called Andrews to get the money. Tell him that I told you to go. I don't have any cash or checks on me. I'll go play for a few days and come back on time." "Then I'll go too," Nanier said greedily. Chen Zhao rolled his eyes at Nanier. She'd already taken the check. Now, she wouldn't even let go of the $100,000. Chen Zhao threw down 2 sports car keys. "I'll lend you 2 sports cars outside. Don't break them." Chen Zhao was about to stand up and leave when Perwill suddenly called out, "Boss, wait. I have something to tell you." Chen Zhao stopped and looked at Perwill. Was he going to tell on Nanier? To Chen Zhao, as long as Nanier didn't betray him and completed her mission, he wouldn't care. He wouldn't care what she did on Demon Island. "What? Boss, I have a brother." Perwill looked at Chen Zhao, troubled. "I'm not interested in your brother. I won't care about him." "No, I want to bring my brother when we go back to Demon Island." "What?" Chen Zhao thought that he'd heard wrong or misunderstood. "Say that again. When we go back to Demon Island, I want to bring my brother. You know what Demon Island is, right?" "I know. Of course I know." Perwill had been living on Demon Island for half a year. How could he not know what Demon Island was? "He's like me in the past," Perwill said. "I'm afraid that he'll die on the streets at any time, so I want to bring him to Demon Island. He's a wanted criminal, right?" No. He's been to the police station a few times, but he's definitely not a wanted criminal." "Fine. Since he's not a wanted criminal, then bring him. As for the method, it's up to you," Chen Zhao said casually. "But you know the rules. As long as he goes to Demon Island, he has to follow my rules." Chen Zhao said casually. Yes, I understand." Street thugs all over the world were the same. They were lazy and hovered at the edge of morality, constantly testing it. No one knew when they'd commit a heartless crime. Perwil was also worried about his brother. To him, even being Chun Zhao's shepherd was better than dying on the streets. At least, he'd enjoyed good treatment after becoming Chun Zhao's employee. He also had Chun Zhao's protection. It was definitely 100 times better than living on the streets. Of course, the only downside was that Demon Island was very far. They had to spend most of their time on Demon Island. But it was still a proper job, and it was a high-paying one. Chapter 31:53. After collecting the money, Powell and the others ran to the Las Vegas casino. As for Nanier, she had no interest in gambling. She was only interested in squandering. After giving Nanier a check, Chun Zhao left her alone. Although the otherworldly god had no morals to speak of, however, they had their own way of doing things. If he was crazy, then he would be boundlessly crazy. If he was a coward, then he would be a complete coward. Chun Zhao didn't have time to care about Nanier. It was mainly because there had been a lot of things happening in the past few days. The complete exposure of the spirit world and the arrival of the spirit chi tide. It had already caused some obvious changes to the situation of the entire world. Anyway, there were a lot of things to worry about. For example, someone's kid was playing a prank with magic. Another example was the haunted house that had been abandoned for more than 10 years. In the past, there was no evidence for such things. But now it was basically conclusive evidence. Los Angeles wasn't too bad. With the supernatural organization around, those small fries wouldn't be able to cause any trouble. There was also the psionic team, although they were enemies with the supernatural organization. However, the psionic team was quite capable in maintaining public order. Chun, do you have time? How about a cup of coffee? Amira said. Chun Zhao picked up the phone. You're a strong woman. Do you have time to get coffee? Building relationships with important clients is also one of the jobs of a strong woman. All right. Amira arranged to meet Chun Zhao at her own private club, a golf club by the sea. Chun Zhao also saw 2 association members here. Last time, Amira had asked Chun Zhao for some special bodyguards. Chun Zhao had Amira contact West and then found the 2 bodyguards. They were part of Norma's team. When they saw Chun Zhao, they were surprised. Guild leader, I have an appointment with Amira. Where is she now? Let's take you there. From afar, they could see a table on the shoreline. Amelia sat there, drinking coffee and enjoying the sea breeze. Chun Zhao walked over. Amira turned her head slightly and watched Chun Zhao stroll over. Chun, sit. Chun Zhao pulled out a chair and sat down. A waiter brought him a cup of coffee. Chun Zhao really didn't like drinking coffee outdoors, especially when he had to put on airs. It's rare to see you so relaxed. Amira took a sip of coffee. I know you don't like to talk in the office. All right, looks like we have business to discuss. Do you really think I have so much time to ask you out for coffee at 3 in the afternoon? Who knows? Don't you rich people like to do things that ordinary people can't understand? Don't forget, you're richer than me. You didn't call me over to discuss our assets, did you? A few days ago, when I was investigating the flow of funds in the bank, I found a very special collateral. What kind of collateral can make you so curious? Baiku Archipelago, the legendary front line of a different world's invasion war. Amira looked at Chun Zhao. I wanted to make a contribution to the world and get the loan waived, but then I realized that someone paid it back. Amira stared at Chun Zhao. Chun Zhao shrugged. I'm an old friend of the Egler family. Is it that surprising that I'm paying a friend back? I thought it was because of the benefits. Amira still looked at Chun Zhao with a meaningful look. Amira, regardless of whether the Baiku Archipelago has benefits or not, you shouldn't think about the Baiku Archipelago, Chun Zhao said calmly. It was just as Amira had guessed. The Baiku Archipelago did indeed have great benefits. As for Monica and Tess Agler, they were still too young. They thought that the Baiku Archipelago was only worth what they could see. That was why they sold 50% of the Baiku Archipelago to Chun Zhao under Chun Zhao's persuasion. But no matter how Chun Zhao had gotten the 50% ownership, it still belonged to him. Amira wasn't from the spiritual world. Chun Zhao didn't think that Amira should come into contact with the Baiku Archipelago. What if I want it? You can't. Even if you buy the ownership of the Baiku Archipelago from someone else, you won't be able to keep it. Chun, you seem to have underestimated me. Even the American government doesn't own the Baiko archipelago. If you buy the ownership, you'll just be contributing to the country. You should know the darkness of politics better than me. I can let someone else buy it. I still have some family members with other nationalities. Such underhanded methods are meaningless in front of politicians. As long as Citibank is an American company, it can't be separated from politics. Then why can you own it? Because I'm the guardian, Chun Zhao said matter-of-factly. If the American government tries to take something from me, I'll fight back with the fiercest method. Chun Zhao said matter-of-factly. Can you fight against the government? Maybe, maybe not. But no matter if I win or lose, the government will definitely lose. Chun Zhao picked up his cup and drank some coffee. I've never liked coffee. Chun Zhao looked at Immerse seriously. Don't rush into something you don't understand. If you lose in politics, you'll at most lose some benefits. But in the spiritual world, you'll lose more than just benefits. Is that a threat? Chun Zhao stood up and tidied his clothes. It's a warning, not just for you, but also for the person behind you. If you ask me out again, you'd better do it in a restaurant or a bar. Coffee tastes really bad. Chun, your company is also in this country. Did you forget? Chun Zhao stopped and turned back to look at Amira. You and the person behind you clearly don't know me well, Chun Zhao said. Otherwise, you wouldn't say something like that. You can tell him that starting a war against me is the same as starting a war against the entire spiritual world. Now, Chun Zhao had the right to say that. This world is dominated by ordinary people. After all, tell that person that if I feel like I'm being targeted, I'll strangle his family one by one in front of him. His wife, his children, all his family members. I'll let him understand that he's facing a demon. Amira didn't say anything else. Only after Chun Zhao left did Amira pick up her phone. Mr. Schwick, communication failed. Also, the threat you prepared didn't have any effect. Instead, it angered him. Looks like I have to let him understand the power of politics. Mr. Schwick, I have to remind you that he's very powerful. From what I know, he's at the top of the spiritual world. So what? Since he's on this land, he can only play by my rules. Fine. I hope you understand what you're doing. Chapter 3154. Mr. Chun, the beer factory stopped production. Stop production? Why? Today, officials from the city hall came to the beer factory. They said that our beer factory didn't meet safety standards and failed quality inspection. City hall officials? Since when did the city hall take care of production, safety, and quality inspection? Mr. Chun, did you offend someone? Denver asked. Denver obviously knew that the city hall didn't have the power to interfere with production. However, the city hall called the fire department and the Food Safety Supervision Committee directly. Chun Zhao frowned. Okay, I understand. Follow the official's request and resume production as soon as possible. After hanging up, Alex called again. Chun, the Marine Animal Protection Organization, suddenly landed on Mysterious Island in the past 2 days. They said that the project destroyed the marine ecology and had a conflict with the construction team on the island. Now, the Coast Guard is involved in the investigation and ordered the project to stop temporarily. I understand. Have the construction team stop for a week. Chun, do you know how much we'll lose if we stop for a week? I know, Chun Zhao said. I just don't want the conflict to escalate. Chun, did something happen? Nothing, Chun Zhao said calmly. Someone just went out without a brain. Maybe I can find some connections and solve the problem, Alex said. No need. Chun Zhao immediately rejected Alex's suggestion and hung up the phone. It was the first time Alex had been so rudely hung up. She could vaguely sense the anger hidden under Chun Zhao's calm tone. Chun Zhao dialed another number. Hello, Mr. Governor. Who is it? I'm Chun Zhao, Chinese. I thought you knew me. I won't hold a Huasha man in my heart. Governor, I think you've crossed the line. Crossed the line? I don't think so. I'm just using my power reasonably. Didn't Miss Amira pass on my message? Don't try to barge into areas you don't understand. Ha! Chinese Chun, are you threatening me? Your weapon is politics, but you clearly know nothing about me. I really want to see what you can do to me. Kill me? Killing you is easy, but I don't want to do that. I'll let you know me first. Ha! I have no interest in you. Whether you're interested or not, you need to understand. Let me kindly remind you that there will be a huge storm on the West Coast tonight. I don't need you to remind me. The West Coast Weather Bureau has the best meteorologists and equipment in the world. After hanging up the phone, Schwick immediately dialed his assistant's number. Contact the West Coast Weather Bureau immediately and ask about the weather conditions in California and the West Coast for the next 3 days. Schwick soon received a reply from his assistant. Sir, the Weather Bureau said that the West Coast cities will have clear skies for the next few days, and the daytime temperature will be around 28 degrees Celsius. If you want to go out and play, it will be a good choice. All right, I got it. Schwick smiled. It seemed like the other party was just trying to scare him. Schwick picked up the phone again and dialed another number. Hey, Mr. Donzer, that man called me angrily today and threatened to create a storm. Don't worry, Mr. Schwick. No one in this world can create a storm unless that person is God. Are you sure? I'm very sure. Donzer was one of the members of the think tank that Schwick had recently recruited. He was also his partner. He filled in the gap in Schwick's team regarding the spiritual world. Donzer had a very deep background in the spiritual world. Schwick's main demand was political, and Donzer was an important part of his control over the North American spiritual world. And Donzer's demand was in the spiritual world. Both sides needed each other, and there was no conflict of interest. Therefore, it was quite a pleasant cooperation. After ending the call with Schwick, Donzer put away the phone in satisfaction. He would use Schwick's political power to control the supernatural organization and the entire North American spiritual world. Then, he would use the North American spiritual world to support Schwick so that he could successfully break through in next year's election and become the Great Chancellor. Then, he would use the Great Chancellor's political power to complete control over the entire American spiritual world. As for that Chinese man, he was the current president of the supernatural organization. In Donzer's eyes, he was just an insignificant person. He might have some power, but he had no political background. To Donzer, he was a political noob. Without relying on any political power, he controlled a supernatural organization that was funded by the government. Donzer walked into a bar. It was opened by an old friend of his. Hi, Kindle. Kindle was wiping a glass at the bar and glanced at Donzer. What do you want? Whiskey. With a smile, Donzer said, Kindle, how did the World Supernatural competition go? Not very good. Kindle answered unhappily. Bad ranking. Kindle was even more unhappy. It wasn't just bad ranking. I almost didn't come back. $15, thanks. Kindle ignored Donzer. How about my suggestion last time? I remember I've already refused you. Kindle, come and help me. I really need you. Donzer looked at Kindle sincerely. I just want to run this bar well now. Do you have any business here? That's none of your business. As long as you're willing to help me, I'll open a bar 10 times more luxurious for you in a month. You have money? Kindle knew that Donzer was as poor as he was. No, even poorer than him. I'll have it in a month. I'm not interested in empty promises. You don't trust me. I only believe in the benefits in front of me. If you can give me $100,000 now, I'll work for you. If not, please pay for the drinks first. A month. I only need a month. By then, I'll be in charge of the entire L.A. Impossible. You don't call the shots here. The supernatural organization calls the shots here. In a month, the supernatural organization will belong to me, Donzer said confidently. Kindle stopped wiping the glass and looked at Donzer in confusion. Donzer, do you know what you're saying? Of course I know. I'll get rid of that yellow monkey soon. Kindle sighed. He was actually tempted. But after hearing Donzer's words, he completely gave up on the idea that had just sprouted. Was this guy an idiot? Didn't he know that he was walking on the edge of death? This meant that the wind speed of this cyclone had reached an extremely terrifying level. Once a real storm vortex was formed, it would be unprecedented. There was a superstorm that hit the West Coast last April. It was also a red alert at the time, and half of Los Angeles was flooded. Moreover, it also triggered a tsunami, and seawater flowed inland, causing huge economic losses and casualties. Tang Se drove, but his expression grew more and more serious. Storm? This storm came too suddenly. Tang Se felt a little uneasy. Just then a call came in. "Hello, Mr. Swick. What's with this storm? Give me an explanation. What's with this storm?" "It's a coincidence, Mr. Swick. Please believe me. Spiritualists have powers that ordinary people can't understand, but this power is very limited. It's impossible for them to create a storm." "Is there really no one who can do it?" "Of course. I can guarantee that no one can do it." Hearing Tang Se's reassurance, Swick relaxed a little. Just as he was thinking about how to deal with this storm, the phone rang again. The phone rang again, and Swick picked it up. "How is it? My weather forecast is accurate, right?" "China. Chun, you don't think that a coincidental storm can make me yield, do you?" "Of course not. I'm not going to let you go so easily. Just like you said, you attacked me with the method you're good at, so I'll fight back with the method I'm good at. This is just the beginning." "Oh, by the way, you'd better be careful to protect the road you're planning to build, because it will be destroyed by this storm. Then, the insider deals you made with the construction company will be exposed." "No. Don't think that you can scare me like this." Actually, Swick was already scared. He suddenly regretted his decision a little. "Oh, right. There's something else I need to remind you. I'll also arrange a special program. Magical beasts from the other world will come into contact with you. Then, your contact will be exposed by the media. You'll be a traitor who betrayed humanity for your own benefit. Your wife will leave you, and your son will also be exposed because of this. He'll be bullied in school. Don't mess around. This has nothing to do with my family. Hee. It's up to me to decide whether or not it's unrelated. Mr. Swick, you know that we Chinese have a habit of killing all our enemies in the cradle. Although your son is still underage, I'll use the most vicious method to bury him with you. Mr. Chun, we can talk, no need. From the moment you attacked me, we're enemies. I never negotiate with enemies, nor will I compromise." Chun Zhao's tone was joyful. "Guess who is the envoy of chaos from the other world beside you?" Swick's heart sank even more. He wasn't sure if Chun Zhao was telling the truth, but he didn't dare to take the risk, not with his family. He completely regretted it now. It was just as Chun Zhao had said before. He'd barged into the unknown otherworld, and he'd offended such a dangerous enemy. They were all professionals in their respective fields. Do you know what the saddest thing in life is? After you go to prison, your wife will remarry, and your son's stepfather will drive your car, sleep with your woman, and beat your child. It's so pleasant to be your enemy. All right, don't worry. You won't be sentenced to death. I'll do everything I can to avoid the death penalty. I need you to live to witness it all." Chun Zhao teased. "You're right." Chapter 3156. That night, a superstorm landed on the west coast. This superstorm, codenamed Demon, lived up to its name. Demon. It had set a record. The highest wind speed was 600 kilometers per hour. What did that mean? According to the scientists' calculations, ocean currents, and the Earth's rotation speed, the highest speed of a hurricane wouldn't exceed 360 kilometers per hour. But this calculation wasn't absolute. As the global climate warmed, more and more mega and superstorms began to approach this limit, and some even surpassed it. Demon. But it appeared before the world in a terrifying manner, destroying the world. After the demon storm landed, it was really like the end of the world. First, a wave over 40 meters hit the coast. In recent years, the highest recorded wave was only 21 meters. But the height of the waves caused by this storm had reached a terrifying level. No ship on the sea could withstand such a terrifying wave. Countless ships docked at the docks were affected first. It was also destructive. The stronger the storm, the heavier Schwick's mood became. "Mr. Donzer, I want to know. You said that humans can't create storms. How did this storm come about?" "Prophecy. It must be prophecy magic." Donzer was also very anxious. The rundown house he lived in was leaking. It was on the verge of collapsing under the storm. All of Los Angeles had lost power. It couldn't be helped. The storm had destroyed many electric cables. The entire city was shrouded in the demon's shadow. The demons were tearing everything apart. Even the steel forest seemed so fragile before the demon storm. The tall buildings swayed in the storm. In fact, even Chun Zhao didn't expect this. The storm he'd created was so terrifying, because he didn't know how strong the storm he'd created was. Chun Zhao only released a large amount of heat above the Pacific Ocean. Based on the principle of a hurricane, the cold and hot air would collide and create a cyclone. Then, Chun Zhao sped up physically. If he turned left, he would go east and land in Asia. If he turned right, he would go west and land on the west coast. Chun Zhao even sped up manually. Then, it created the current state of the demon storm. When Chun Zhao returned home with a satisfied expression, the Weather Bureau sent out a red alert. At the same time, the news kept reporting that this storm was unprecedented. Chun Zhao finally realized that he'd gone overboard, but he didn't plan on stopping them. Chun Zhao had even destroyed a section of the road. The construction contractor for this section of the road had some dealings with Schwick. He didn't have enough evidence, but he didn't need it. They just needed to spend money and use the media to create public opinion. He didn't have much else, but he had a lot of money. Chun Zhao wanted to destroy everything Schwick had. This was the first politician to provoke Chun Zhao. Chun Zhao needed to display enough power and tactics. Otherwise, more people would come to offend him in the future. To put it bluntly, it was killing the chicken to warn the monkey. The entire city was in blackout, but Chun Zhao's house was still brightly lit. After his family went to bed, he left the manor again. "Nannier, where are you now?" "Boss, I'm at the hotel. It's so annoying. I can't go anywhere tonight. The power is out in the hotel." "Hate you? I'm the one who created this storm. Are you complaining to me?" That's not what I meant." Nannier had no idea that this storm was caused by Chun Zhao. "Go to the rooftop of the hotel now. I need you to do something." Nannier went to the rooftop obediently in the wind and rain. Soon, Chun Zhao arrived. He picked up Nannier and left. Nannier didn't dare to ask. Soon, Chun Zhao told her what she needed to do. Soon, Chun Zhao brought Nannier to the sky above a villa. Schwick was in this villa. Apart from Schwick, there were 2 bodyguards in the villa. Moreover, these 2 bodyguards were spiritualists. Schwick was restless the entire night. He had a feeling that something was going to happen, but there was nothing he could do now. He couldn't do anything. He couldn't even leave the villa. The wind slammed against the glass windows. The sound was so terrifying that it made one's scalp go numb. Suddenly, the window seemed to be smashed by something. In an instant, the wind filled the room. Once an opening appeared, the air pressure in the entire villa lost balance. All the windows shattered. Then, the roof of the villa flew off. Schwick and the 2 bodyguards were struggling in the raging wind. "Damn it. Hurry. Think of something." Schwick hid in a corner. The wind and icy rain attacked him, making him feel cold and terrified like never before. However, the 2 bodyguards were helpless. Although they were also spiritualists, they were helpless. Although they were spiritualists, it didn't mean that they could handle everything. One of the bodyguards didn't have anything to hide behind and was blown away by the wind. Schwick glanced at the bodyguard who'd been blown away. Useless. Schwick was stunned for a moment. Why'd he say something like that out of nowhere? Just then, the other bodyguard realized in horror that tentacles were extending from Schwick's back. Schwick also realized that he couldn't control his body and stood up. But now, he wasn't afraid of the wind at all. "Mr. Schwick, you, so troublesome. You saw me. Looks like I can only kill you." Sure, Waika really wanted to slap himself. Why did he always say such ridiculous things? But the next moment, the tentacles behind him shot out and pierced the bodyguard's chest. Then, with a casual swing, the bodyguard was also blown away by the wind. Schwick was about to break down. What exactly happened? Why did he say something so strange? And what were those tentacles? The next moment, Schwick fainted. Chun Zhao put away the DV. He'd already recorded enough scenes. The tentacle monster behind Schwick turned back into Nannier. A smile appeared on Chun Zhao's face. "Boss, what do we do now?" "Call an ambulance for him." "And the one whose chest you pierced just now? You didn't kill him, right?" "No." Although his chest was pierced, it was still a few centimeters away from his heart. "I controlled it very precisely." "Well done. Next, find a place with internet access, and upload the scene that just happened. Okay, boss. I know what to do. Don't show yourself and control a stranger. That you're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.